Afternoon. Thank you all for being here. At this time, I'd like to call the February 11th, 2025 regular City Council meeting to order. City Clerk Ben Lane, may I please have a roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Lisa Borowski.
Present.
Vice Mayor Jan Dubauskas.
Present.
Council members Barry Graham.
Present.
Adam Quasman.
Present.
Kathy Littlefield.
Present.
Marianne McAllen.
Present.
And Solange Whitehead.
Here.
Interim City Manager Greg Caton.
Present.
City Attorney Sherry Scott.
Here.
City Treasurer Sonia Andrews.
Here.
Acting City Auditor Leigh Clough.
Here.
And the clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Tonight, we have Scottsdale Police Officers Sergeant Sean Ryan and Detective Destin Patrick, as well as firefighter Bobby Conan. If anyone requires their assistance, please let us know. At this time, I'd like us all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, which I'm happy to lead. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For tonight's invocation, I'd like to turn the mic over to Councilwoman Kathy Littlefield.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the first evening of our council meetings this year that we're going to have an invocation, and we're putting it in place to help us as it can help us along the way. For myself, I have a very strong feeling of separation of church and state. So instead of a prayer or asking someone to come up and give a prayer, I would like to ask for a moment of silence so each of us can say to ourselves and to God what we wish to say, what we wish to have happen tonight, and to wish us all good life and happiness. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Littlefield. As the mayor's report, I'd like to start by offering our sincere condolences to the victims of the accident that occurred at the Scottsdale airport, and that moment of silence many of us dedicated to their thoughts and prayers for their families. In addition, tonight is Councilwoman Dubauskas' first meeting as the Vice Mayor. On behalf of all of the members of the City Council and the city, congratulations and welcome as the Vice Mayor. And we'll miss you, Councilman Graham. Oh, but you're still here. And one other, well, actually I have two other announcements. Councilman Quasman's appointee has changed for the Budget Review Commission, and I'm pleased to join Councilman Quasman in welcoming the highly qualified Jim Ransko. So we'll look forward to working with him. Yes, indeed. Jim, if you're here, we appreciate it. Thirdly, on February 10th, the Business Journal reported that the research has shown that there was a study done across the United States, and Scottsdale was awarded #1 of the 20 best cities to raise your family in. So that is fabulous news, and certainly we aim to keep going in that direction. So with that, turning to first public comment. Public comment is reserved for Scottsdale citizens, business owners, and/or property owners who wish to comment on non-agendized items that are within the council's jurisdiction to hear. No official council action may be taken on these items, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes to address the council. If you wish to speak on a non-agendized or agendized topic, please see the city clerk, Ben Lane. And we do have it looks like five non-agendized public comment requests. So starting with Ryan Johnson, will you please Podium, then following Ryan will be Katie Nelson, Hillary Lopez, Robert Fishman, and Jennifer Heitmeyer. So if you'd make your way to the stage there in preparation, that'd be great. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you. Ryan Johnson. I've lived on Sorrel Lane in Stonegate community for a couple of decades now. You might notice that I'm wearing a City of Scottsdale volunteer lapel pin, which I do from time to time. You see, I've served on both the Environmental Advisory Commission for 6 years, twice appointed by the council and mayor, and I served as a volunteer on the last General Plan Committee in 2021. And I want to take a moment tonight to comment on the waste of taxpayer dollars that has been represented by the repeal of the city's first sustainability plan, which, as you know, was passed in December and repealed by this body in January. As you well know, the city's general plan, which passed by a unanimous vote of council, the city's general plan passed by a unanimous vote of council and ratified by Scottsdale residents in 2021, called for the city to create a sustainability plan within 1 to 5 years. So following that directive from voters, the commission spent more than 3 years on the sustainability plan. It was agendized in just about every commission meeting. We discussed it for hours. Staff did research. Staff met with department heads across the city, came back with suggestions. We compromised. Last fall, at the request of council, there were 2 public meetings held in different parts of the city. More than 80 attendees, 0 negative comments about the plan overall. Hundreds of staff hours, hundreds or thousands of volunteer hours. In the January City Council meeting, 30 public comments. I counted 2 of the 30 that were in favor of repeal. As I said that time, it ended up having a shorter shelf life than a gallon of milk, the sustainability plan. And again, for the record, the plan contains no mandates, no requirements, no spooky monitoring. Nobody's going to force you to sell your car or put solar panels on your roof. Although there was quite a bit of fear-mongering invoked by the city council, in my opinion. Last week, on February 4th, the deputy city clerk posted a news item on the city's website, Scottsdale residents, to seek Scottsdale residents to serve on boards and commissions. The second paragraph of the news item said, I'm quoting, the Scottsdale City Council relies on citizen-led groups to research issues and offer insights that guide important decisions. And yet, last month, you chose to repeal the city's resident-created, city council-guided sustainability plan. So when I hear people talking about putting residents first, it sounds like a lot of empty campaign sloganeering to me. It's just one of those things that politicians say to get votes. One of the politicians here brags about making the budget process more transparent to help address cost overruns that have been costing taxpayers, quote, millions of dollars. I've got to wait for you to save money. Use the existing sustainability plan that was created by residents and passed by the city council last month. So I ask you, if we're so concerned about wasteful spending, and we're so encouraging that citizens can provide meaningful input to the city, why are we literally lighting money on fire in the form of time and effort and repealing the sustainability plan starting from scratch? This is unfortunately for our city a case of ideology first and residents last. Thank you for your attention.
Okay. I appreciate your enthusiasm. We have about 80 speakers logged in the books tonight. So out of respect for everybody in the room, especially mostly the citizens that are going to be patiently waiting their turn, if we can keep the applause and distractions to a 0 balance, I would really appreciate your cooperation. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate your comments. Next is Katie Nelson. Calling Katie Nelson. I don't see her. If she shows up, we can put her at the end of this list. Hillary Lopez. Hillary? Okay, lastly, I've just been informed that Mr. Fishman has moved to a regular agenda item, and therefore Jennifer Heitmeyer is our last speaker for non-agendized items.
Hello.
Hello.
First of all, Madam Mayor, sweet job on the pronunciation of my name. Nobody gets that, so well done.
Making up for all the other names that I botched on the first meeting, so apologies to them.
Totally off topic, a suggestion. I was here for the first sustainability and appreciate the concern about the time of applause. You know, the hearing impaired community does this for applause. It might be an option for people to voice their support without taking time.
Excellent. I like it.
Okay, so get it that this is a non-agendized item, so I don't expect responses. I too share a curiosity about where council is on progress about the sustainability report that I believe this body nullified less than 45 days after it had been called by the prior council. So I'm fairly new to Scottsdale. I moved here 3 years ago from Ohio. OH. Thank you. I knew there was no way that I could be in a room in this town without saying OH and somebody knows to say IO. I moved to be closer to my parents because I'm an only child and I wanted to spend time with them before it just became about caregiving. And I was happy to come here because they raved about how beautiful this city was, the pride that people took in their homes, the fact that they cared for their neighbors. They talked about the sense of community that is here in Scottsdale. I was not involved in the crafting of the recommendations, and I'm using that word super deliberately, of the sustainability plan. I was only made aware of the plan's existence due to my participation in a cycling group called the Weezers and Geezers, who've been riding since before you were born. And some of those guys have, and let me tell you, they can still smoke me. But when I heard about the recommendations, and again, I'm using that word so deliberately, I thought this sounds like a pretty cool idea. So I dug in a little bit to the plan. And yeah, it sounded great. Ways to make transportation a little more accessible for cyclists who choose to use that either as their means of transportation or just to stay fit. Full of great ideas. And I thought, I'm going to tell Mom and Dad about this. I'll bet they don't know about this. So I did tell them, and I expected them to be all in, and instead, I was met with, oh, we've heard about that, it's horrible. We have to tear up our lawn, we have to cut down our trees, we have to put solar in our house, we're going to have to get electric cars. And I was like, what are you talking about? And what I realized in conversation is that somehow the ideas set forth in the sustainability plan had been misconstrued by so many as laws. My parents were 100% certain that Scottsdale was coming for their lawn. When we talked about the fact City Council controls the purse strings, and nothing could be done without your approval, suddenly some of those ideas didn't seem so bad after all. Now, people hate change. It's hard and it's scary. And the older we get, the harder and scarier it is. But to maintain the good of this community, we have to change. And it seemed like maybe some of those ideas that weren't so hard and scary might be a good place to start.
Thank you, Jennifer. Very much appreciate your participation. That closes public comment, and now I move on to the approval of the prior meeting minutes. I request a motion at this time to approve special meeting minutes of December 5th, 2024, regular meeting minutes of December 5th, 2024, and regular meeting minutes of January 14th, 2025.
So moved.
Seconded.
Please register your vote. Thank you very much. Item number 18 on the agenda was added to the agenda on February 6th and requires a separate vote to remain on the agenda. I would like to make the motion actually to accept the agenda as presented tonight or continue the added item to either February 18th or March 4th council meeting. And I'll just narrow that motion down to accept the agenda for this evening. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'd like to take a vote on this item. All those in favor, please register your vote. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we have consent agenda items 1 through 12. I'll say that I do have questions on one of the consent agenda items, and that is item number 7, and I would like to pull that off the consent agenda at this time, and opening the floor to other council members that have any questions about the remaining items or wish to pull any item off the consent agenda. See none, just make sure. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 12 with the exclusion of number 7.
So moved.
Second.
Please register your vote. Thank you very much. Regular agenda items. Item 13 is a presentation and discussion on possible direction to staff related to a citizen petition submitted at the January 14th City Council meeting regarding placement of signage throughout the off-leash activity area at Chaparral Dog Park. I understand that this evening, our city staff member Nick Molinari, our Community Services Assistant Executive Director, will be presenting on this item, as will the citizen who presented this petition, Steve Sutton. So I'll start with the petitioner, Steve Sutton. Please approach the, Steve, did you want to go first, or do you want to go second? Okay, let's have Mr. Molinari, no problem.
Good evening, Mayor Borowski, Vice Mayor DeBoscus, members of City Council. My name is Nick Molinari, and I am responsible for the City of Scottsdale's Parks and Recreation Department. I believe I'm on a time limit right now, so I'm going to move through some background, 5 minutes, some background about the Chaparral Park off-leash area and the signage at the off-leash area, and then I'll open things up for any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Let's see, so background. Chaparral Dog Park, located approximately Hayden and McDonald, has 3 separate off-leash area designations. We refer to them as cells. We have 2 larger areas that are designated for large dogs that are rotated essentially for turf maintenance and turf regeneration, and then 1 smaller area that is designated for smaller dogs. The 2 larger areas are approximately an acre apiece, and the smaller area is just under an acre. In 2023, the Scottsdale Parks and Recreation Department changed the signs at the off-leash area from active passive to large small in response to feedback that we had had from dog park users over an extended period of time. And really at that point, it was that people had said to staff that active and passive was very subjective. It was hard to understand what an active or a passive dog may be, and the large and small designations seem to be the most common within that function. So the Parks and Recreation Commission did hear an overview about the signage change in June of 2023. This is an aerial of the Chaparral off-leash area. This is to the left is Hayden, and to the top of the screen is north. So we have 1 area here. You can see this area has a lot of wear and tear. We typically rotate those 2 areas, and then the smaller areas down near the bottom. In response to the citizen concerns and the citizen petition that was submitted by Mr. Sutton, we heard public comment from Mr. Sutton at multiple Parks and Recreation Commission meetings in the fall of 2024. And our staff had several individual meetings with Mr. Sutton during that time, and we expressed to him that we would be willing to work with him on signage, and that we would do research into best practices as far as dog park signage, which we did. The Parks and Recreation Commission in October of 2024 directed the Parks and Recreation staff to look at dog park signage, do some research, and then bring that recommendation back to the commission, which we were scheduled to do next week on our Wednesday, our February commission meeting. And then in November of 2024, Mr. Sutton submitted a citizen petition requesting that we remove the large and small designated areas, that we go back to the active passive, and we use dog behavior instead of size. He also made some really great suggestions about additional language that we could use to further communicate expectations at the dog park. I'm going to go through here really quick. I'm not going to go through all of these points. I know I'm on a time limit right here. We did benchmarking. We looked at dog parks throughout the United States. We looked at Scottsdale's 9 Valley comparables, which we do for most of the benchmarking that we do. And then we looked at cities throughout the United States that had similar characteristics, similar population to Scottsdale. And we found that 28 of those cities had signage using the terminology small dogs and large dogs. And then 11 of those cities had other approaches. And they're kind of all over the place as far as active, timid, passive. I won't read through all of these, but we looked at industry recommendations, which we do for a lot of our policies. And we looked at the American Kennel Club, which recommended in dog park design small and large. We looked at the Trust for Public Land, which had similar recommendations. And then the National Recreation and Park Association, which has a lot of really good information about how to manage parks. And you can see that they have several recommendations that they've made, and one of them, while they recommend space for small dogs and large dogs, they also recommend space for timid dogs, active dogs. So through our analysis, we did find that large and small designations are probably more common and the more standardized designation for dog parks, but they're certainly not the only dog park designation. So when we looked at that, we did a deep dive, and there are lots of communities that use some other characteristic when designating the space within the dog parks. And we are open to the direction and to working with our citizens in terms of what makes the most sense for our community in terms of dog park signage. So I will leave this. We are either seeking direction from City Council, and City Council can make a motion for us to either change the dog park signage, keep it the same, or for us to proceed with presenting the information to the Parks and Recreation Commission. I'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Molinari. Don't think I have any questions for you at this time, so we'll ask Steve Sutton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pursuant to the rule, I would like to call the question on this.
Thank you very much, Councilman Quasma, but I'm going to let Mr. Sutton, who's, I think, spent tireless number of hours preparing for this day, so I'm going to
Of course.
go ahead and allow him to give a presentation.
Pardon me, it's going to take me a moment to get organized here.
No problem.
I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, but I would like to use this.
Steve, if you could speak into the microphone.
Steve Sutton, 6637 North 81st Street. Good evening, Mayor Borowski, Vice Mayor Dubauskas, I'm sorry, and council members. You already know why I'm here. We want you to vote tonight to accept these signs and have them installed. I've actually had a printed copy of Director Molinari's report and presentation for a couple days, enough time to write a rebuttal, which I am not going to give. I am going to say just a couple quick things in regards to what Director Molinari said. Yes, active and passive, as we had it before, is subjective. Our new signs, which you can see here, add some additional language to make it far less subjective. What's on the left-hand side, the small area and large dog area, they're also subjective. There's nothing down at the park that tells you what's small and what's large. The petition was not submitted by me. It was submitted by, I just did the paperwork for it. 500 people signed that petition. And benchmarking of cities that use large and small without knowing the reason why they chose that designation through some type of academic study really doesn't mean anything other than you've got a list of imitators. Dogs don't change their behavior with the geography they live in. Tonight we're asking the council to increase the level of safety at Chaparral Dog Park. The currently installed small dog area and large dog area signs provide less safety than the 16-year-old passive dog area and active dog area signs they replaced. Residents of Scottsdale request that you vote tonight for the installation of the new passive dog area and active dog area signs and the new dog park etiquette signs. These signs were created by some of the dog park's most frequent users and endorsed by hundreds of other users. Physical size is not a reliable indicator of human or canine behavior. Socialization, not breed or size, is the most significant factor influencing dog behavior. This is why we have videos of pit bulls cuddling kittens and cats being treated as members of a pack of huskies. Behavior-based designation signs are used at many dog parks in the United States, including Anthem, Fountain Hills, Gilbert, Goodyear, Mesa, and Queen Creek, Arizona. The behavior-based signs we are proposing are better than any others I've seen because they give basic definitions of active and passive. The size-based signs currently installed do not define what is small and large. In fact, through the United States, size-based signs are inconsistent in defining what size delineates small and dog. They start at 20 pounds for large and go up to 60 pounds for large in 5-pound increments. Behavior-based passive dog area and active dog area designation signs are necessary to address common situations at the dog park to help prevent injuries to humans and dogs. Situations such as people with 2 passive dogs of quite different sizes, larger older dogs and large breed puppies that infirmity or immaturity make it unsafe for them to play with very active mature dogs. Large and small dogs that, due to abuse prior to rescue, are very timid and unhappy. At the dog park, I've seen these dogs often become confident and happy after socializing with passive dogs. Smaller hunting and herding type dogs that occasionally are too active for a passive area but capable of safely playing with larger active dogs. For example, corgis, a breed that was bred to dodge the feet of cattle they herd. Most importantly, we need to give guidance to first-time users of the park that have timid, large dogs. These dogs are sometimes singled out by very active dogs for play that the timid dog perceives as torment, and this can result in physical injury. It was such an incident causing injuries requiring stitches to close wounds that became the impetus for asking the Parks and Recreation Department to go back to passive and active signs. The new passive dog area and active dog area signs would be located at the entry gate. Their text provides basic guidance for deciding which area is most appropriate for the person's dog. They also succinctly explain and encourage appropriate behavior at the dog park. Appropriate dog park etiquette is what our current behavior policy and regulation signs attempt to promote. There are multiple copies posted at the dog park. These signs are not located on the entry gates of the designated areas. They are on the inside fencing. While the messages of these signs are necessary, they are insufficiently effective due to language, style, design, location, and most importantly, very few visitors to the park say they read them or remember the details if they read them. The new dog park etiquette signs are designed to encourage good behavior rather than warn people of what is considered bad behavior. These signs are intended to be very large with very large text to present a simple main message that from almost any location inside the dog park can be comprehended, even if only subliminally. In smaller text between and below the main message is explanatory information amplifying the main message. To promote community communication and cooperation, both types of signs have the text, "Talk to fellow dog owners about cooperating and helping each other keep your dogs and yourself safe." On behalf of the several hundred Scottsdale residents requesting your help through petitions to improve safety at Chaparral Dog Park, I ask that you vote tonight to adopt the new behavior-based designation signs and dog park etiquette signs. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members for your time and consideration, and thank you, residents and members of the press who are in attendance tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Very much appreciate your passion for this issue. While we've received 48 requests for public comment on this item, I would like to make a motion to approve your petition to change the signs, restore the signs to passive and active, or active and passive. And I'd look for a second to do that.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this motion, this petition, please register your vote. Thank you, Mr. Sutton. This quest for success is approved. So, and I believe it was, well, still waiting for Vice Mayor, but I think, yeah, she's, and so there we go.
Well, on behalf of everyone who signed the petition and all those that would have liked to have signed the petition, thank you very much.
Thank you for your passion, and have fun out there at the dog parks. All right, thank you everyone who showed up on that agenda item, and I'm sure you appreciate the result, hopefully. And we'll move on to item number 14. Item 14 is a request by 4 members of the City Council to adopt ordinance number 4662 that would discontinue the use of city funds for diversity, equity, and inclusion systematic programming to include the Office of DEI programming and trainings, and other initiatives that could violate state statute. The measure also asks City Council to consider directing the city manager to reassign the Diversity Program Director and Americans with Disability Act Compliance Coordinator to an appropriate department and position. We received 47 requests for public comment on this item, and it's going to be a long night already, so I am limiting the comment time to 1 minute per person. And you can feel free to collectively contribute your time to a representative that you would like to see speak on your behalf, up to 3 minutes. So with that, we are going to start with public comment. The first, let me go through the first 10. The first individual who would like to speak on this issue is Robert Lurie, followed by Dan Isaac, Bobby Scopa, Lori Battaglia, and Monica Villalobos. Now that's only 5, so we'll stop there. Thank you. Mr. Lurie?
Hello, my name is Roger Lurie. I've been a resident of Scottsdale for 31 years, live at 10592 East Mission Lane. I have 3 minutes of comments. I'll try to phrase this into 1 minute. Scottsdale has a nonprofit called the Community Celebrating Diversity. It held an MLK dinner recently with 500 attendees. This year, I was one of the recipients of the Diversity Champion Award. As you can tell, I'm a white male. How did I earn this award? By showing compassion, empathy, and volunteering to serve persons not like me, persons of different races, ethnicities, income levels, and beliefs. Mr. Quasman, I too am Jewish and appreciate your commitment to ensuring that we do not tolerate anti-Semitism. The Torah commands us to treat strangers with kindness and equality. I recommend that the Human Relations Commission be charged with studying this with a focus on continued support for empathy and care while encouraging meritocracy in the workplace.
Thank you, Mr. Lurie. Dan Isaac.
Dan Isaac, address on record. I'm in full agreement that Scottsdale should not lower standards or seek to fill jobs based on race, religion, gender, et cetera. However, that is not what our diversity office does. So either the council is woefully ignorant or willfully misrepresenting the situation to check a box, or worse, create division. Our diversity office does not have initiatives or guidelines to provide any group with preferential hiring or promotion. The E for equity in DEI does not exist in the diversity office, in the Scottsdale government, or our website. The office does seek to ensure that all qualified candidates and employees have equal opportunity. They also provide education to make sure that people understand the differences in culture. For example, not everybody would know why an observant Jew would wear a kippah. Further, our diversity office works with other departments to ensure all of our visitors are welcome. Many businesses and organizations, whether one believes it to be right or wrong, require tourist destinations to demonstrate a welcoming atmosphere. That's why we have it in our PR materials. To risk even a portion of that revenue by eliminating our diversity office is reckless. Mr. Quasman, at the last meeting, you correctly pointed out that anti-Semitism is more widespread in the city than people realize, and you urged Scottsdale to take special action to define it and call it out. But to call it poison, using hateful words, is something that you should know is not a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Next is Bobby Scopa, followed by Lori Battaglia and Monica Villalobos.
Good evening, and thanks for giving me my 1 minute. I'm Bobby Scopa, retired firefighter and fire chief, 45 years experience. I've received medals for saving lives. I spent a month working at the pile at 9/11 in New York City. I've been on many of the mega fires throughout the country and have supervised thousands of firefighters. Since retiring, I've been speaking to organizations about leadership. Let me get down to the last couple paragraphs. This is not about hiring unqualified, diverse people instead of qualified applicants. Hopefully, DEI programs ensure that the very best person is being hired, even if they're Black, trans, or Jewish. The reason we have a DEI program is because highly qualified, diverse job applicants were being passed over exactly because they were Indigenous or gay or Muslim. DEI programs remind our city staff and citizens that we as a city value everyone regardless of their race, gender, religion, or any other factor that makes them different than their coworkers. If you think the city's DEI program is not effective or needs changing, ask some of us to help and figure out what we need.
Thank you. I'd ask you to use the hearing impaired for your applause. I think that was a very good idea because it just is slowing the process down. And I appreciate your enthusiasm, however. Lori Battaglia, I believe you have donated time, so you have 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Lori Battaglia. I'm the CEO of Aligned at Work in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'm a resident here for 15 years, 14 years as a business owner. I came to address this tonight. I'm going to skip my opening and not tell you about my background, but we would like to believe that people, if they just pull themselves up by their bootstraps, they'll get ahead in the world. And while that's true for some, it simply isn't true for the vast majority. Like it or not, if you aren't white and straight and affluent and Christian, you probably have stories about bias and discrimination. I'm here to ask the council to do what you were elected to do, to represent all of us. Those that voted for you, those that didn't, and those that didn't vote at all. We all deserve to be included, listened to, and acknowledged. Scottsdale's diversity focus has been around for 25 plus years, but we didn't pass an anti-discrimination ordinance until 2021, lagging behind other cities in the valley. It was clear in 2018 during the Sawarbro marketing campaign that all the voices were not represented at the table. Scottsdale called a public meeting, which I and many others attended, and we created an inclusive path forward. Now it appears that you'd like to dismantle a system that's been working in favor of making a human issue into a political one. From a business leader perspective, if you have concerns about the efficacy of DEI programs, appoint a bipartisan team to dig into it, analyze it, and put recommendations in place. Don't toss the entire program because one group of people decided to get offended. Again, focus on humanity, not politics. Let's keep Scottsdale as a place of inclusion and kindness where all can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica Villalobos.
Thank you very much, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Monica Villalobos, and I serve as president and CEO of your Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. For 76 years, we have represented and helped small businesses in this state. I'm joined today by 2 board members, our vice chair, Lorena Valencia, and our vice co-chair, Lorena Van Ash. And we are here today representing the over 50 general members and corporate partners in Scottsdale. We have over 1,200 total general members and over 106 corporate partners. And what I can tell you is we have been thrilled to partner with the city of Scottsdale for many years. In fact, during the pandemic, when you needed more people out there shopping, you reached out to diverse leaders like myself, Luis Gonzalez from the Arizona Diamondbacks, Lolo's Waffle House. All of us came and we showed up for you. All we're asking you to do today is show up for us as well. That Shop Scottsdale campaign was a very inclusive campaign. We've worked tirelessly with Jackie Johnson in this office to make sure that we have representation. All I would say to end is merit must include access. Please don't stop the momentum. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Norton. Seeing no Michael Norton come down, we'll move on to the next one. Former Councilwoman Betty Janik. And then followed by Betty Janik is James Eineman, Joel Martin, and then Rabbi Kravitz.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Scottsdale has strict city codes and has been required to do merit-based hiring for years. Additionally, Scottsdale does not have any hiring quotas. Scottsdale is ahead of the curve on all of this. Any reference to the contrary is false, misleading, and grandstanding. Scottsdale is served by the most qualified employees, and that's what makes us a world-class city. The Office of Diversity has many roles, and I'll just limit it to the one that I think is probably the most important. They investigate, mediate, and resolve issues on laws regulating compliance with ADA and Title VI. Our city values and respects all people, whatever God you pray to or no God at all, whether you live in an apartment or a home, whatever the shade of brown of your skin is, whatever your sexual persuasion is, seniors, children's, and those in between, and the disabled. You are welcome members of our community, and in the words of Abe Lincoln, with malice towards none, with charity towards all. I urge you to reject 4662 as unnecessary and mean-spirited and retain the department dedicated to these ideals. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Next, we move on to James Eineman, followed by Joel Martin and Rabbi Kravitz.
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, I'm Jim Eineman. I've been through this before. In 1972, Berkeley enjoyed a reputation on a par with Scottsdale today, and then a new council came in, and they swept armed with zeal and certainty that they knew best. They soon got rid of the leaders who didn't fit their political paradigms. They refined, they redirected, and remodeled every department, every activity, and thus began the decline of what had once been called the Athens of the West. I urge you to remember Berkeley tonight and in all the things that come before you for the remainder of your term. Don't take Scottsdale back to a time of parochialism, narrow-mindedness, and intolerance. Last thing, I believe, because I've worked with this for years, I've won awards for it, there has been a tsunami of misinformation about DEIA. So I would urge this on you. Take a step back tonight and don't make a reactive decision. Instead, study DEIA on a macro and a micro basis. And armed with those facts, then you can make a responsive decision. And having done these studies, I will be happy at no cost to you to provide you with study parameters within 14 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eineman. Next, moving on to Joel Martin, followed by Rabbi Kravitz, Stana Michelle Slater, and then Trixie Ann Goldberg, sorry.
I want to give you a different perspective on DE&I. My husband Bob and I moved here from New York City, from Marin County, and we selected Scottsdale as our home 24 years ago. I have volunteered for many leadership positions, including the Red Cross, Scottsdale Sister City Board, and others. I served 2 terms as the Scottsdale Human Relations Committee member. I am a coach and one of the many, many people that the U.S. exports. I've worked in 14 countries. There, it's called transformational leadership. Here, it is called diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. From my heart to yours, please maintain the DE&I people who are working so hard for equity in our hospitals. If you're a military person, it's touched your life. If you are a mother, it has touched your life. As you look to keep your children safe and in school and educated, it has touched so many lives. From my heart to yours, diversity, equity, and inclusion is not about separating people. It is about unifying people.
Thank you.
I ask that you vote yes to keep it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel Martin. Rabbi Kravitz, followed by Stana Slater. Trixie Ann Goldberg after that.
Mayor, members of council, thank you for granting me time to speak to you tonight. I'm Rabbi Robert Kravitz, and I've been an ordained rabbi for more than 50 years, living in Metro Phoenix, Scottsdale for nearly 4 decades. During the years of my rabbinate, I've served congregations and communities elsewhere with an emphasis on the mitzvah, the biblical injunction to love your neighbor as yourself. I was proud to support the city of Scottsdale's choice to adopt the Unity Pledge, and I was equally delighted when this city, my city, became a Golden Rule community and also adopted the non-discrimination ordinance. Diversity makes cities great. Choosing to cancel folks because they're different makes us weak. Canceling diversity, equity, and inclusion devolves into discrimination against those who are different because they don't look like me, because they cannot mentally process as I do, because they can't ambulate as I do, because they cannot see the world through the same glasses as I do, because they're challenged in their activities of daily life. Tonight I'm speaking out. Tonight I'm cautioning you, our city council, that removing DEI is harmful to the livelihoods, security, employment, and personal rights of our residents of Scottsdale. We need to be a welcoming community for all, businesses and people alike. Scottsdale must continue to provide each of us with our constitutional rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Stana Michelle Slater, followed by Trixie Ann Goldberg, Jeff Jameson, Tonya Collier.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. I'm Stana Michelle Slater. I built my home here 33 years ago in 1992. I remember then that Scottsdale was a city that would get joked about on the morning radio as Snotsdale and Snobsdale. And I've lived through 33 years and seen that in the last 25, the leaders have done enormous work to change the perception of Scottsdale. And that has attracted enormous talent. Some of the best talent that ever exists is diverse, a minority person. I am the LGBTQ liaison for the city. Some might say I'm a DEI hire. I'm also a practicing attorney. 35 years. Some of you lawyers on the council have practiced almost that long. I'm also a former Army officer in the Arizona Army National Guard and the U.S. Army Reserve. I parachuted and earned my silver wings. I think I've brought 8 years to the city as the LGBTQ liaison, not as a DEI hire, didn't earn it, but because I'm transgender, but because I have something to offer, just like so many other people here who work for the city. Please do not end DEI.
Thank you, appreciate it. Trixie Ann Goldberg, followed by Jeff Jameson, followed by Tonya Collier, followed by Neil Shearer.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Trixie Ann Goldberg, a 6-year resident and 1-year home owner here in Scottsdale. I oppose this ordinance. As a resident who sees the critical needs in our communities, including housing, aging infrastructure, increased heats, and water uncertainty I'm again frustrated to see the critical time of our community leaders spent recreating redundant policies. externally appearing to be responding to outside voices over our own community. Communities, economies, and the desert landscapes are made stronger, less vulnerable, and more resilient through diversity. What today is labeled as diversity was first introduced to me as human rights, civil rights, equal rights, pay equity. Simply said, those terms and the vocabulary that comes from it means making room at the table. For me, this is recognizing that most people, but in particular young people, people with disabilities, the elderly, and the average working families, for me, making sure that they are heard at the table is absolutely critical. I too get tired of the term DEI, so I change it to SEI, Scottsdale's Ending Intolerance. Thank you, please.
Thank you. Jeff Jameson, followed by Tonya Collier, followed by Neil Shearer, then Reverend Ann Leiter.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Jeff Jameson. I live on Astor Drive in North Scottsdale. It won't take me a minute just to say that this whole proposal is wrong-headed. I think it's mean. I think it's dangerous. If we eliminate the number of staff doing ADA compliance, we could end up in court. It also sends a message to our city employees that may dampen their abilities or desire to make a claim of their disabilities or bullying or other issues that they may face. It's something that has been in place for years. Thank God we passed the equity ordinance in 2021. This goes against that in many, many ways. There's many discrepancies in this. There's language that you want to continue training, but you want to eliminate the trainers. That makes no sense at all, and I wonder if you have any knowledge at all what DEI training is all about. This is a slap in the face of all citizens of Scottsdale, a community that is quite diverse and needs to be continuing diverse so we can thrive as a city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Tonya Collier, followed by Neil Shearer, then Reverend Ann Leiter, then Lee Kaftel.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Tonya Collier. I live on Angel Spirit Drive in Scottsdale. I'd like to speak to the topic of DEI in terms of the assumption that it means that we are underqualified or accepting positions for people who are not educated enough or who aren't trained to do the position. That is exactly wrong. We can't advance and represent our entire community unless everyone is represented. And our community in Scottsdale is very diverse, and everyone who lives here should have an opportunity to have a seat in the room to bring forth issues that someone who doesn't have that perspective would not be able to bring forth. The country and the world is larger than small and petty issues that bring us division and hurtful actions. I live here as a choice with my husband, and I hope to continue to live here in an environment that accepts me and all that I bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Neil Shearer, followed by Reverend Ann Leiter, Lee Kaftal, and Rhonda Kelso.
Good evening, Your Honor, and members of the council. Neil Shearer, longtime Scottsdale resident. Almost 21 years ago today, a man affiliated with the White Aryan Resistance sent a pipe bomb through the mail addressed to my friend and colleague, Don Logan, the first director of the Office of Diversity and Dialogue. Don was seriously injured when he opened the package, as were two of his co-workers. It strikes me beyond ironic that a convicted felon, white supremacist, through hate-filled and violent means, could not succeed in silencing the diversity office, yet the city council could accomplish the same end by shutting down the office through a simple majority vote of the council in your first 30 days in office. My plea to you tonight is to pump the brakes. Give yourself time to get up to speed on the issues and facts. We already have merit-based employment. We are already complying with state, local, and federal laws. Please take the time to get up to speed and to govern with wisdom and discernment before making sweeping policy changes that disrupt the entire fabric of what makes Scottsdale a special place. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Reverend Leiter.
Reverend Ann Leiter, my address is on file. I'm a pastor with the United Methodist Church, and my denomination values diversity, whether that is based on ethnicity, age, gender, or whatever man-made category we might apply, because all people are beloved by God and created in God's image, the Imago Dei. In addition to being a minister, I bring almost 20 years of experience as a corporate employment lawyer, and my clients experienced what Forbes reports. Companies that prioritize DEI tend to have happier and more innovative employees, higher retention rates, and are better at problem solving. If Scottsdale has been hiring substandard employees or hiring to fulfill some kind of diversity quota, which is illegal, where is the evidence and why are you not dealing with that? And if there aren't substandard hires, then what is this all about? Is this council truly against diversity? In the year 2000, there was a study published that orchestras had trouble hiring women. And the reason was because when you could see the musicians, the men were hiring men. But when you put a screen, they hired women at substantially higher rates. Bias is real, and we need to address it so that we can hire the best people. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee Kuftal, followed by Rhonda Kelso, Jan Dolan, and then Marion Kelly.
Hello, Lee Koftal. My address is on file. I normally wing it, but I decided to actually write something down this time. So, hello, Mayor and other City Council members. Before you repeal the city's DEI program, I want to make sure you understand the decades-long history of attacks on this office and programs like programs like them at the city, and in this city specifically. Nearly 20 years ago, on February 26, 2004, the city staff was attacked by a terrorist. It's the only terrorist attack against a city employee I could find. It was mentioned earlier. It injured 3 of our city's employees after months of aggressive phone calls trying to get the city to shut this office down. It was 2 brothers. They were twins. One of them, Dennis, he was a member of the White Aryan Resistance and a Grand Dragon in the Ku Klux Klan. And he was also part of many other neo-Nazi and white supremacist movements, along with his brother Daniel. Just so you know, tonight, after you repeal this, those people will be celebrating the 20 years of their efforts to close this office.
Thank you very much, Lee. Rhonda Kelso.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I stand in favor of retaining DEI in the city of Scottsdale. It's vital. We all need it. We all benefit from it. Our kids benefit from it. Our health care benefits from it. Every single business in this city benefits from DEI. DEI brings us diversity by bringing different people, different thoughts, and different ideas. DEI brings us equality, where equality in education provides a more solid education, brings differences of ideas into the courtroom, into the city council room, and into the classroom. Inclusion, the act of including and accommodating people who have been historically excluded. I ask, have you ever been a member of a group? Have you ever been included? Have you ever been provided justice when perhaps you did not earn it? Equity. Have you ever been brought to a setting due to a unique opinion or skill set? Diversity. Who do you wish to deny being included? Who do you wish to deny equity? Who do you wish to deny diversity?
Thank you. Jan Dolan, followed by Marion Kelly, Todd Key, Tammy Bassi, and then Victoria Kaslerich, or Larick.
Good evening, Mayor Borowski, members of the City Council. I don't think I need an introduction to many people here, but let me just say, I served this city and I've lived here over 25 years. I was not a DEI hire. I got the job on the merits. I too am concerned that in a few short moments, one council meeting, you will throw out what the White House could not do. Standing here with me tonight, in case you are not familiar with him, is Don Logan, who was the diversity director when I was the city manager, who they tried to kill. I ask you, do not try to kill diversity and its efforts. I can assure you, as can, I'm sure, the new acting city manager, the police chief, the fire union president, all employees of the city. The city only hires on merit. Only on merit. The only people who got a slight introduction into the door were the rural metro firefighters, but they were all hired on merit. So there is no hiring based on quotas or diversity or whatever. It opens the door. It opens the door for you to be on the city council, for Don Logan to be alive. I ask all of you, yes, you can applaud, because if you're hearing impaired, you don't know what this means.
Thank you, Jan.
So,
appreciate it.
yes, and I have a...
Thank you. Next is Marianne Kelly.
And I'd like to introduce Marion Kelly, who is one of my close friends and an advocate for diversity, and he will give you his speech, as will Mr. Logan, who we are all thankful can be here with us tonight.
Thank you, Marianne. I appreciate that. Jan, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, elected officials, citizenry of Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm Marion Kelly. I wear more hats than a minute will give me to tell you about them. But I will tell you that the 27 years that I've lived in Arizona, I've lived, worked, and played in Scottsdale. My children are all graduates of Scottsdale schools, and the adopted child that I took out of the foster care system is now seeing patients in Scottsdale. I am here because I support equity, inclusion, and diversity in its broadest sense. And so I don't want to confine equity, inclusion, and diversity to affirmative action, because it's absolutely the opposite. Affirmative action is a part of it, but understand that affirmative action is giving qualified people the opportunity for a spot that they otherwise would not have gotten. So what does diversity and inclusion include? I will tell you that it includes ramps and sidewalk curb cuts. It includes family restrooms. It includes changing tables in men's bathrooms. It includes breastfeeding, pumping stations, pay equity, and all the more. Coming back to work after childbirth, not having to accept workforce harassment, and many other things. I lived, worked, and played here because I love Scottsdale. I'm here to support you, not work against you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Todd Key, followed by Tammy Bossi, Victoria Kozlarick. I don't see, oh, there's Todd, okay.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Todd Key. I'm a Team USA Paralympian. I've traveled all over the world racing bicycles for the United States of America. They have incredible programs all of the places I race, everywhere I've been. 20 years ago, a friend of mine was a quadriplegic. She was rolling down a street in Scottsdale. I've been a resident for 35 years. She was rolling down a street, came to a corner. The corner was badly designed. She fell over in her wheelchair. No one was there to help her. She burned to death. Over 100 degrees at the time. She died in the hospital a few years later because of the sidewalks, because of no inclusion. What kind of a city are we if this are the choices that we are making. That is insane. We are here to help the less fortunate. That is our job, to create and provide.
Thank you very much, Todd. Tammy Bossy, followed by Victoria. Is Tammy here? Come on down, Victoria, appreciate it. And if Tammy is here, you can come to the podium. After the speaker, and maybe Tammy, Harry Masoloff, Aaron Nicoletti, Larry Bernowski, and Daniel Schwartz. Thank you. Please proceed.
Hi, my name is Victoria Kozlerich. I've lived in Scottsdale for 13 years, and I've owned property here for 23 years. I have more than 20 years of experience in human resources, and when I look at merit-based hiring versus DEI, I look at it through my human resources lens, and I invite you to do the same. Follow along with me and you'll find that there's a misunderstanding about how hiring practices work and how DEI's role fits in with those. DEI and merit-based hiring don't stand alone from one another. In fact, DEI ensures a robust merit-based hiring system because it promotes consideration of all applicants who meet the agreed-upon hiring criteria. These approaches work together, with DEI assuring that merit-based systems are robust. Facts can be troublesome things. The city already hires based on merit. As I've described, DEI enhances merit-based hiring. The proposed ordinance is a path to nowhere. I hope that you can see a vote to kill DEI is another way of saying that you're not serious about merit-based hiring. Clearly, if merit-based hiring is your goal, it cannot be the reason for killing DEI. What is?
Thank you very much. Harry Masoloff, followed by Aaron Nicoletti.
My name is Harry Masoloff. I'm a certified public accountant, living in Arizona for 45 years, and I've come here from Philadelphia originally. When I was first notified about diversity, equity, and inclusion that it was being taken out from the city, my first thought was, what's wrong with the program? I figured if let me look into it. I said, hey, looks good to me. Are there ways to check on funds that were being used incorrectly or whatever? There are audits. So there's ways to make sure everything is going right. But what I couldn't understand is why somebody would call it poison. And somebody who's Jewish would call it poison. And in this time of racism and anti-Semitism, I just can't understand, quite frankly, especially my background coming in from Philadelphia inner city, and I could go on for a long time, but I just don't see why this program should be discontinued. We need it today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masoloff. Aaron Nicoletti, followed by Larry Bernowski, Daniel Schwartz, Stephen Maurer.
My name is Erin, and I'm a resident of Scottsdale for 15 years. DEI is the new conservative boogeyman. Like CRT, the Trojan horse that used to wreak havoc on our public schools, DEI is the new Trojan horse, this time to destroy our democracy. Without DEI on a city council currently dominated by women, there would be none, because without DEI, women would not have the right to vote, let alone be elected to any government position. DEI is what allows Councilman Quasman to freely wear his yarmulke anywhere, and frankly, he likely would not be on this council either if not for DEI. DEI is simply a recognition that we all have differences and that those differences should be embraced as assets to enhance our community, not used against us as a way to shun us from it. Last meeting, I was shocked by by the Christian prayer, especially in the presence of council members that clearly do not practice Christianity. I was even more shocked to find out that the reintroduction of the prayer was pushed by Councilman Quasman. I'm happy to learn this rotating prayer that will represent diverse examples of spirituality. This too is DEI. Why is it okay here? I would say it's likely inclusion for me, but not for thee. I'd like to add that this attack on DEI is a slippery slope. It will take down anyone who isn't white, straight, Christian, and male from birth. If you don't check all those boxes, I'd think twice about getting on the bandwagon. If you do check all of them, you are hurting yourself by believing that you don't also benefit when many people are included. Kindness is free, DEI hurts no one. Please oppose 14.
Thank you very much. Larry Bernowski.
Yes, good evening. My name is Larry Brodowski, and good evening to the mayor and the council. I live at 19700 North 76th Street here in Scottsdale, and I urge the council to vote against Ordinance 4662, the so-called merit-based employment and discontinuation of DEI. This proposal is not only counterproductive, but a step backward in our city's efforts to foster unity, collaboration, and effective problem solving. Unfortunately, this misguided move suggests a pattern of the council majority prioritizing ideology over analysis or careful consideration. The council appears to be working from an ideological playbook that disregards the tangible benefits of DEI programs. Before making such a significant and damaging decision, I urge the council to educate itself on the roles and contributions made by the Diversity Office. The council must have factual justification for this proposed ordinance and include specific examples of where poor decision-making resulted because of DEI. To do otherwise would be a failure of leadership. I implore the council members to reject Ordinance 4662 and uphold your duty to serve the true needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. Daniel Schwartz, followed by Stephen Marr, Mark Rentz, and then Linda Milhaven.
Good evening. Dan Schwartz, a 20-year resident of Scottsdale, address on record. The most disturbing thing about 4662 is that it's purely performative, addressing no problem other than pandering to some councilors' narrow basis. Are we really happy with the look, as attested to by the media here today, which appeared in the Axios headline, Scottsdale Council looks to emulate Trump policies on DEI and return to work? Will we also follow brilliant policies such as investing the city's treasury in cryptocurrency? I urge the council, if they insist on this resolution, to focus on its potential negative economic impact. Even more egregious is this attack on the city staff. Anyone who works with the city staff knows they are gems of the city, implying that any of them have their positions because they were hired or retained to meet a non-existent diversity quota is slander adjacent and dishonest. I would encourage the council to show some leadership by converting this proposal into a study item, or even better, rejecting it outright. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Stephen Maurer, followed by Mark Rentz, Linda Milhaven, Eleanor Schaefer. Stephen Maurer. Okay, Mark Rentz. Former Councilwoman Milhaven.
Good evening. My name is Linda Milhaven. I live in Belgian Trail here in Scottsdale. It seems the DEI has gotten a bad reputation. It is not and should not be about quotas. Quotas are illegal. It is not and should not be about advantaging one group to the disadvantage of another group. It is not and should not be demanding white people apologize for being white. To me, it is about equal opportunity and understanding and respecting our differences. While we may disagree about what DEI means, I think we agree on several things. I support the mayor in her response to constituents stating that the city is committed to abiding by and enforcing all federal and state laws. I also agree with the mayor when she says, when we invest in the equity for all people and empower all communities, all of Scottsdale gains. I agree with Councilman Quasman when he says Scottsdale is for everyone. Actions speak louder than words. If you pass this ordinance tonight, many will see it as a gesture that contradicts your words. Occasionally, you will be presented with an opportunity where everyone can win. This is one such time. The President's executive order requires that programs comply with federal anti-discrimination laws. There is no reason to eliminate all programming on the off chance that they might violate the law. I am confident that programs do not violate the law, but a review will give you and others concerned about the negative impacts of diversity programs the confidence that we are compliant and help to keep worthwhile programs that support your spoken goals and send a message that Scottsdale is open for all. Please do the right thing and do not pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Eleanor Schaefer, followed by Joe Junker, Chris Asmussen, Mark Rentz, then Catherine Coggins.
Good evening, Council. My name is Eleanor. I was born in Scottsdale, raised in Scottsdale, and I live in Scottsdale with my 3 children. I'm here today to ask you that the City Council does not adopt Ordinance 4662 and instead let the city continue with its initiatives to celebrate diversity, work towards equity for all, and to be inclusive. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are things that the city should be proud to embrace and work towards. There is strength in diversity. We should want the world to be a more equitable place, and we should strive to be inclusive. These are values that I teach my children, that I try to hold for myself, and these are values that the city should embrace and not turn away from. Therefore, I ask that the city not adopt this ordinance and instead continue to work towards these values that should be celebrated. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. Joseph Junker, followed by Chris Asmussen, Mark Rentz. Seeing no Joe Junker, I'd like to move on to Chris Asmussen.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Chris Asmussen. I'm a longtime resident, live on East Montebello. For the last 25 years, I've been a school administrator. The first 22 of those years, I was a principal right here in Scottsdale. I know a little something about managing large groups of diverse people. As Denny Brown would say, little humans. We know how mean kids can and unkind kids can be. We hear the harmful effects of bullying, harassment, and intimidation, and we know that bullying is not just a plague on our kids. Adults behave in the same way toward one another, and violence is not just limited to the playground. I contend that if we are to manage unkind behavior, we have to instill a little empathy in one another. We have to teach people to celebrate each other's differences, and then through that recognize that we are more alike than we are different. Helping people celebrate diversity and building pathways to acceptance is building the skills to be able to coexist. It's building the skills that a workforce needs to compete. Businesses need collaboration and communication. It's about breaking down the stereotypes that have us judging one another before we even know one another. These are diverse times. How will you continue to unite us without DEI?
Thank you very much. Mark Rentz, followed by Catherine Coggins, Catherine Patton, Laura Battaglia. She already spoke, sorry. Followed by Dr. Raquel Armstrong.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Mark Rentz, and for the record, I submit written comments on this item number. Don't look at me while I'm speaking. Look out at the audience. Recognize the diversities here, and you must admit to yourself that in part that diversity is the success of OID. Now you want to get rid of a program that has been so successful for your constituency. I looked over the staff report. The purpose statement mentions nothing about policy development, so it can't be an argument that they're creating wrong policy. Furthermore, I am unaware of any infraction or violation of law by this office, and therefore there is no misconduct on their part that justifies the dissolving of this office. And finally, I looked at the fiscal aspect in that report. It is $716,000 of a $2.3 billion annual budget. That's less than 1/3 of 1% that goes to this office. I can only assume that those of you who are voting in favor of this ordinance tonight either do not understand and consequently do not support OIE. I also believe, if that's not the case, that you generally oppose diversity, equality, and inclusion.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Catherine Coggins, followed by Catherine Patton and Dr. Armstrong. Don't see either Catherine. Oh, there we go. Catherine Patton. All right. Followed by Dr. Armstrong, Dana Close, Michelle Rose, Nancy Dallett.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Katie Patton. I'm a 16-year resident of Scottsdale, and this is my first time speaking because I am compelled to do so. You've heard a lot tonight about diversity, equity, inclusion. The city of Scottsdale is speaking in volumes about this important issue and matter. And as a mother of a young daughter, and as a woman in corporate America who has benefited from DEI, this is an important issue to continue. I look out at this council, I look out at this room. Not a single person, either directly or indirectly, has not benefited from the diversity, equity, and inclusion of others. Even today, the invocation was inclusive of those who may or may not approve of prayer. Inclusion is in the Pledge of Allegiance that we started this meeting with. If the issue is meritocracy, I will end with this. Meritocracy without inclusion is purely an illusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Dana Close, followed by Michelle Rose, followed by Nancy Dallett and Caitlin Barnes. Dana Close.
Good evening, Mayor Borowski, members of council. My name is Dana Close. I'm a 35-year resident of South Scottsdale. While I stand with everyone here, I'll jump right to another section of mine due to the editing here. I'll focus my comments on the concerns for the physically challenged, as well as the autistic and neurodivergent community. Specifically, I'm alarmed by the proposed reassignment of the ADA compliance coordinator and the reduction or elimination of city funding for programs that promote inclusion, accessibility, and equity. According to current estimates, around 500,000 Americans with autism are expected to enter the workforce within the next decade. These people with unique gifts that any workforce would be lucky to have amongst their ranks. They may simply need a bit of help with office accommodation, or they may be best served working from home. This does not mean that their work and talents are not valuable. They could very well be more skilled in various areas than any other applicant. We would be hiring the best, but sometimes the best comes in different packages. That was a very fast minute. I encourage you to please reconsider, and I suggest a work study so that we can really look at what's coming up in the future so that we can work together for all of our community members. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Michelle Rose, followed by Nancy Dallier, Caitlin Barnes, and then Jason Alexander.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Rose. I am the secretary at the NAACP East Valley Branch. President Jevin D. Hodge asked me to deliver a message. The NAACP East Valley Branch urges Scottsdale Mayor Lisa Borowski and the entire City Council to vote no on ordinance number 4662. Forbes recently reported DEI isn't just about social justice. It's an essential component of business success, workforce innovation, and long-term economic growth. Companies with greater gender and ethnic diversity on their leadership teams are far more likely to financially outperform less diverse companies. President Hodge emphasizes this is not just about one office or one ordinance. This is about the future of Scottsdale's economy and reputation. When you dismantle DEI programs, you don't just hurt marginalized communities, you hurt businesses, workers, and families across the city. The economic data is clear. Inclusion drives prosperity. Scottsdale must decide whether it wants to move forward or backward, and we will not stand by as progress is undone. Vote no on ordinance number 4662. And I have a message for the audience. Freedom fighters, the NAACP East Valley branch works to disrupt inequality,
Thank you.
dismantle racism, and accelerate change in key areas. Join the movement. www.evnaacp.org.
Thank you. Nancy Dallier. Followed by Caitlin Barnes, Jason Alexander, and Jeff O'Connor.
I come tonight before you, Mayor and Council, as a 35-year resident of Scottsdale with grave concerns for the speed with which the Council is attempting to dismantle our city government, seemingly in lockstep with the federal government's attempt to derail values, policies, programs, and laws. You, must stop alarming initiatives to undo many of the unique and forceful visions and sustainable successes that have contributed to living in this unique city. Diversity, equality, and inclusion programs lead to creativity, innovative engagement, and an enhanced reputation. By eliminating a dedicated director and staff to envision and implement policies and programs, we say to the world, we want to dismantle our unique culture for seemingly purely political reasons, to turn our backs on the fact that we all make a contribution. We are all in this together, and each of us brings something to the public imagination and eventually can become the soft and hard infrastructure of our future. No Hispanic Heritage, Black, and/or Women's History Month programs, no Holocaust Remembrance or MLK Day. The next generation of citizens will be stripped of their understanding, appreciation, and opportunity to benefit from a richly diverse, inclusive, innovative citizenry that values each individual, not regardless of, but because of their diverse backgrounds, gender, creativity, and dedication to building a city and a world for everyone. Please keep your eyes and energy on what binds us and makes us stronger. Do not eliminate DEI.
Thank you. Caitlin Barnes.
Council, putting DEI and merit into a binary is simply wrong and a gross misrepresentation of what DEI does. DEI is a merit-based system that brings performance and diverse experiences together. Performance has always been rewarded, and DEI ensures that it actually remains that way for all. DEI is not a poison. DEI is a gift. Scottsdale states that diversity is a core value, and getting rid of DEI is a miscarriage of what makes this city great. Please vote to keep DEI in place and continue making Scottsdale a progressive, beautiful city to live and work in. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Alexander, and I understand you have donated time, so 2 minutes.
Jason Alexander, address on record. A few years ago, I was managing a team of software developers, and one of the guys on my team, young man, was a quadriplegic. Now, I would venture to guess that most of us here have never worked side by side with a person with those particular challenges. I had never done that before. And certainly, as a manager, I had some initial concerns, just because I didn't know what those challenges would be. Would I do a good job? How would it work out? Well, this young man, thank goodness the company hired him, because he was a terrific programmer, had a terrific personality. I mean, for God's sakes, the guy programmed with like 2 fingers and his lips. I mean, you try that. It was incredibly difficult, and his mind was so sharp. He was an incredible asset to our team, both because of his skills and his personality. And it would have been very easy for the folks who hired him to have looked at him and gone, gosh, do we really want to take this on? Is this the challenge we want to take on? Or are we going to let our biases and preconceived notions get in the way of hiring an extremely capable young man? So I'm going to ask for the overhead real quickly here. Having worked with that gentleman and really grown as a person, as his manager, learning to be more empathetic, learning to take each employee for what they brought to the table, it certainly made me a better people lead. And I'm glad that I grew through that process. I think he was a tremendous asset to his teammates as well, as they all learned from him and learned to pick up on his positivity and his skills. So I think this picture really says so much about our city and so much about the culture we try to create here in our city. So you can imagine how I was really aghast when Mr. Quasman posted something on his Twitter describing that image as poison. Mr. Quasman, on January 21st, 2016, you got into what became a national incident in your law school class with Professor Joshua Dressler. You took issue with a comment he made, and you burst out and interrupted his class saying, quote, "Comments like that affect people's lives." You went on further to say, "I know how to affect people through language." So again, when you use these words, poison, bombarded, rooted out, how are you affecting people, sir? I mean, we're all entitled to our opinions, but the words matter. The next day, on January 22nd, 2016, you went on the James T. Harris podcast and said you would immediately find ways you could cut the university's budget if you were still in the legislature. So should businesses divest from Scottsdale based on your words? Should conferences not come here? Should tourists not come here? Please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Jeff O'Connor, Erica Ruland, Josh Ursu, and Nicole Baldoff.
'My name's Jeff O'Connor, 45-year resident of Scottsdale, native of Arizona. When I first heard about this, I was so angry. I thought we lived in a different city. I'm confused why there is the need to eliminate an inclusivity policy. Is inclusivity bad? I don't get it. If inclusivity is bad, then exclusivity by default is good. We're not that. We're better than that. I'm looking at the council members up here. In 1960, 5 men and 2 women. Now it's 2 men, 5 women. What were you valued for back, your merits, back in 1960? I know what my mother was, housewife, a baker. That was it, take care of the kids. Look where you're at now. I've seen the 60-year battle it takes to be included. You're there. Now you're women of power. We're on a path of exclusivity, not inclusive. We're going backwards. History shows us what happens when we go backwards, Mr. Quasman. Also, do not be complicit with removing a program that has a philosophy that has enabled you to rise into power on the backs of those who fought for you. Don't do this.
Thank you. Erica Ruland, followed by Josh Ursu, followed by, let's see, Nicole Baldoff. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nicole Baldoff, and I have been a Scottsdale City resident since 2021. Not very long, I know, but I moved to Scottsdale thinking that I was moving to a progressive and inclusive city, and I'm really hoping that it will continue as such. DEI is obviously an extremely important measure to ensure that people are not being discriminated against for jobs that they are fully qualified for. It seems to me that the City Council would like to ensure that elected employees of the city are being selected based on the highest quality candidates available. That is what DEI is here to ensure is happening. DEI is what allows me to know that when I go toe-to-toe against a man for a job, that I am not going to be passed up simply because I'm a woman, or that other qualified residents are not being passed up solely based on their age, race, gender, sexual orientation, ability, etc. I see many female council members in front of me who have all benefited from DEI. It's not too long ago that women had to fight simply for a single seat at the table, let alone 5. Finally, if you or anyone else feels so threatened by DEI, maybe you should consider becoming more qualified rather than trying to exclude those who are. We will not go back. Thank you for voting no.
Thank you, Nicole. Rabbi John Linder, followed by, oh, sorry, I'm going to call up Dr. Raquel Armstrong. She was left out of order, I guess, earlier. Thank you. And then followed by Rabbi Linder, Janice Mokubo, and Andre Miller.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Raquel Armstrong, and by day, I am a researcher by profession. And I want to draw your attention to a case study. So in the early 1990s, when Arizona failed to adopt Dr. Martin Luther King Day, the state of Arizona lost approximately $230 billion, along with the disinvestment of public events, many of which come to Arizona today. And so thinking about the economic imperative, along with what the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access has done in the city of Scottsdale. This office has done transformative work under the transformative leadership of Director Johnson that would irreparably be harmed with the adoption of this ordinance. And so thinking about all that has been heard this evening, thinking about what would be lost in this community, not just for the residents of Scottsdale, but all the people who view this city as a wonderful place to travel to shop, and eventually to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rabbi Linder. Moving on to Janice Shmokubo.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. I'm Janice Shimokubo, and over the last 7 years, I've served on multiple boards and commissions, and I want to make it clear that I stand in front of you tonight speaking solely on behalf of myself. I had a 30-year career at Fortune 100 companies, of which I was a DEI hire, and it was drilled into us as best practices to make business decisions based on facts and data. So tonight I have multiple questions to ask you. How have you conducted a full review of the Office of Diversity's programming and trainings? How much of the systemic programming violates ARS 411494 by placing blame or judgment on the basis of race, ethnicity, or sex? What data do you have to show that city employees are not being hired, evaluated, or promoted based on merit? And what percentage of employees have been subject to unlawful and anti-meritocratic forms of discrimination? In the spirit of good governance, if you can't answer these questions tonight, then I urge you to vote no on Ordinance 4662 and to conduct a study to show the consequences of any changes. Scottsdale residents and taxpayers deserve this necessary due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you. Andre Miller, followed by Andrew Scheck, Kathleen Gramsey, and Don Logan.
Mayor and Council, I'm Andre Miller, the Vice President of the NAACP Arizona State Conference. I shop in Scottsdale, dine in Scottsdale, and spend dollars that support this community. The DEI we see in various news race-based, which isn't the design. The DEI we see in the various news outlets panders, which isn't the design. Scottsdale should not be carrying the water of the current resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, or carrying the sentiment of those who have no problem seeing migrant children sleeping on a concrete slab separated from their parents, or the sentiment that America is the bastion of hope when we have a ton of work to do, and that work starts and continues with diversity, realizing it's our strength and nothing to make you feel bad in your humanity. Some have said DEI promotes reverse racism, and I say the only way you rid Scottsdale or any other place of racism is to reverse it. The proposed ordinance is misguided and an affront to the many advances we've made as a community here in Scottsdale and beyond. Diversity, equity, and inclusion isn't just about a person's race, but understanding and growth. Martin Luther King said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will be not judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character." The premise of that statement can be found in diversity, equity, and inclusion, debates we are having here today. The statement meant that we would always examine the internal, and that can only be done through a willingness to learn, which is afforded through diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Scheck. That was Andrew Scheck, followed by Don Logan, and Nicholas Mentha, and Katie Conway.
See how I can do this in a minute. So how do I know that this is all about ideology? Because Monday I called the Department of Diversity and I asked them, how many people from the City Council called you to understand what this department does, which does amazing things? And only one of you did, and I know which one. Thank you, Mary Ann. So how do I know it's ideology? Because you continue to practice it from the Scottsdale Green New Deal to now. There is no facts that you have about any of this. To Councilman Quasman, you did use the word poison. You had a great speech last month about the Holocaust. You lost family. I did too, lost 50% of my family to the Holocaust. As you well know, in that lesson, using the word poison, there was a guy from Germany who used that against our people. Remember that. When we say never forget and never again, we talk about the lessons learned. It's inclusive to everybody because we never want to happen to what happened to us to happen to anybody else. It seems to me, instead of learning lessons about history, you're trying to repeat it. This DEI is the first step in that. Keep it in place. It is for the people. It works for everybody. It's the way it's supposed to be in Scottsdale.
Thank you, Andrew. Don Logan.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Councilman Adam, I'm talking to you. There's a lot that's going through my mind about what's happening here tonight. And what I'm hearing, I had a 3-minute presentation. Mayor, I understand, we got a minute, I got 46 seconds. This is personal for me. People have moved on from the bombing of February 26, 2004, but every day I'm reminded of what happened that day and why it happened. And it happened because of how I'm packaged, an anti-diversity extremist who I never talked to, never knew, that attacked me and my colleagues because of what we represent. Now, I read this packet here. There's nothing in this packet that suggests to me that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a threat. Ding, ding. I'll leave you with this quote from Dr. King. The true test of a man is not where he stands doing convenience and comfort, but where he stands amongst challenge. Come on, y'all can help me. Anybody know how I finish that? Amongst challenge. We need diversity training here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Don Logan. And for the record, we don't engage in the public comment. We don't participate and respond, so apologies for that. So thank you for the question. Nicholas Mentha.
Greetings, Ms. Mayor and City Council. It's an honor to be here. My name is Nicholas Mentha. I'm a resident of the city of Scottsdale. These are just individual comments. I believe in the power of meritocracy, which is a form of unity in diversity, given that it truly inspires and includes all that makes a person qualified. Merit is often assumed to mean only individual skill, but a person's background, lived experiences, and cultural perspectives are also invaluable assets that contribute to excellence in service. Appreciation of diversity is not a departure from meritocracy. It is the very foundation of it. Removing programs that cultivate inclusion risks creating an environment where certain perspectives are systematically excluded, whether intentional or not. Without efforts that ensure fair access, we risk allowing unconscious biases to define merit rather than genuine ability, character, and potential. So please, inclusion does not happen by accident, it happens by intention. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Conway, followed by Robert Fishman, Yolanda Potter, Hillary Lopez.
Hi there, I'm Kate Conway, and I'd prefer to not continue to meet you like this each month. I've been living in Scottsdale for 21 years and am a resident of McDowell Mountain Ranch. The ordinance we're discussing brings about a number of words. The first is embarrassing, also sad, frustrating, ignorant, racist, prejudiced, sexist, mean, and fearful. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a smart investment for Scottsdale. It's not just about fairness. This is a smart financial strategy that drives business success, especially here in Scottsdale. With our rapidly growing and diverse populations, companies and cities that embrace DEI are better positioned to thrive. Research from McKinsey & Company in 2020 shows that businesses with diverse leadership are 25% more likely to outperform their peers financially. In a city where industries like real estate, healthcare, and technology are booming, we need to embrace diversity to gain the competitive edge. Simply put, DEI is not just good ethics, it's good for our city. Join others here today to urge you to reject 4662. Let's align with some other words like fun, creativity, inclusivity, savvy, smart, wise, and big-hearted. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Circling back to Erica Ruland.
Thank you, Council, for the limited time. I want our Council to know that what is being proposed goes against everything I thought Scottsdale stood for. If passed, it would result in decreased workforce engagement, a lack of community, and halt all progress that has been made for Scottsdale. Council should be focusing on how to support DEI programs. They foster empathy among employees and citizens, which is needed more now than ever. One of the core employee values Scottsdale has, it's on all of the posters, value diversity. To the council members who decided this request was so important that it had to be added to tonight's agenda, I ask you, are you upholding the values of our organization? When a workforce is diverse, it means every employee is bringing in their expertise and experiences to help further grow the organization. And shouldn't our citizens, the people we serve, feel reflected in our city employment? Supporting these initiatives mean that our employees will continue to be able to seek support and continue to feel empowered to voice their ideas and participate in our workforce. Please continue to support DEI initiatives because it means supporting a better Scottsdale. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Fishman, Yolanda Potter, Hillary Lopez, Isaac Young, and then Zaneta Fortune will be the fifth one down there.
Mayor, members of council, Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, is a collective effort to provide an accessible environment where a person with a disability, different in ethnicities, difference in gender and gender neutral, age differences, and LGBTQ plus community would be welcome. DEI is not part of a nefarious agenda that seeks to bring unqualified individuals into the workplace. There appears to be a connotation that the Human Resources Department does not view and vet applications based on the applicant's qualifications. Data such as the applicant's age, race, gender is not included or submitted to the departments for consideration. DEI is not an initiative that engages in training or orientation that presents any form of blame or judgment on the basis of race, ethnicity, or sex in compliance with ARS 41-1494. This is a sacred moment where the city of Scottsdale can choose to stand with its sister cities of Tempe and Mesa to retain the diversity office and embrace a culture of diversity, equity, inclusion. My final thought is this: in the future, after many considerations and debates, will the city of Scottsdale land on the wrong side of history?
Thank you, Erica. Josh Ursu is now here, so I'm going to pick up where we missed him. So next will be Robert Fishman, Yolanda Potter, Hillary Lopez, Isaac Young, then Zenaida.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Josh Ursu. I've been living in Scottsdale since 1997. We have lots of family here in town, and we could probably fill up the soul downstairs here with just the family that I have, and we're all on the same page. I worked at Wells Fargo for 39 years, and I have my fair share of experience with DEI, and I believe there's a lot of confusion about it. Those in support of it say it promotes fairness and protects the disadvantaged, but I believe it's the exact opposite. I think it promotes divisiveness, identity politics, and stifles free thought. DEI attempts to eliminate our traditional values and norms through social engineering. It uses coercion to apply its policies. It becomes like it's kind of become like a secular religion. It's got its own dogmas, its own rituals. It's got its own heretics. Dogmas like equity over equality, rituals like diversity training and pronoun declarations, and heretics, those who challenge or don't conform to its principles. So, right, I think it's an attempt to control thought and speech through the push for specific language use like pronouns or inclusive terminology, and a systematic attempt to replace our traditional value systems with a new secular ethos. I've seen it in practice in my 39 years at Wells Fargo, and totally reject it. Please vote to remove DEI from Scottsdale. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. City Clerk Ben Lane, Robert Fishman, is he next? Okay, there we go. Followed by Hillary Lopez, Isaac Young, and finally Zenaida Fortune.
Hi, Robert Fishman. I've lived in Scottsdale for 13 years. I've visited here for 40 years. I was a lawyer at a clerk for the Arizona Court of Appeals back in 1973. So I have a lot of background. And my question is, why? And what? What caused this? Why did this come forward? I don't get it. Do you get it? What possible benefits have been evaluated to determine that adopting this legislation is beneficial to Scottsdale? The people that have come before me are a lot more eloquent, a lot more experienced, and deeply engaged in this. I haven't heard one person come forward in support of this legislation. Where are they? Where are they? Have you seen any? Have you heard any? Well, are you going to speak? I hope you are, because I'm looking forward to it. The only reason you would The only reason you would adopt this is that you believe that Scottsdale is not using merit-based systems, and thus diversity, equity, and inclusion promote bias, division, racial basis, and inefficiency in government, and that it's part of a woke agenda that misuses taxpayer money. Show me where. Show me the cost-benefit analysis. What I'm very disturbed about is why the City Council would even want to bring this forward. That is a more important question. Are you going to do your duty and actually do evaluations that are meaningful and productive? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Hillary Lopez.
Hi, I'm Hillary Lopez. I live on East Tacoma Drive. The costs of losing this program are vast. This program promotes diversity. Diversity brings a sense for all that they belong. It brings a larger talent pool, new ideas, creativity, even stronger profits. Diverse communities can enhance social cohesion by promoting understanding and reducing prejudice among different groups. Exposure to diverse cultures and perspectives fosters empathy and mutual respect, contributing to a healthier society and minimizing hate. If we need nothing else right now, mutual respect and harmony have to be at the top. I implore you to consider the true gifts of diversity and know that if you don't show our community and our children that all people matter and should be intentionally, effortfully represented, you are telling those of us that are not white or male or heterosexual or typically abled that we matter less. Just know your decision today can benefit our city or break hearts. As Martin Luther King stated so eloquently, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Be on the right side of history and keep our DEI program. Thank you.
Thank you. Isaac Young.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Isaac Young, and I am the current Director of Outreach for the Maricopa County Young Democrats. However, today I do not come to you as a Democrat or as a minority or even just a young Scottsdale citizen, but what I come to you as is a human. I come to you as a human on this earth who deserves the right to be respected. Many years ago, Jim Crow and other discriminatory laws were set in place to limit the access to certain benefits based on a criteria of lookism. Generational poverty has even been set amongst families because of the racist substructure. DEI is a framework that was created on the behalf of the unfair and the unjust treatment towards others who did not live up to a specific agenda. However, as a young man of faith, I believe that God created all mankind equally. The excuse of not having the funds is very unappreciated coming from one of the wealthiest cities in Arizona. Delivering this ordinance will do the opposite of exercising our 14th Amendment by posing the actions of making one feel inferior because of the agenda that God did not create. Equity brings unity. Inequity brings disunity. And I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I want to urge you all to not pass this ordinance that will be a disgrace to people who look and feel the same as me. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Isaac. Zenaida Fortune.
Okay. So, Adam, what you wrote, you're actually absolutely right about. I am one of the vast majority who elected Jen, Adam, Kathy, Barry, Lisa into council to represent us and not the WASPs out here who want DEI, which is actually reverse racism. All right? If you go online, you go to TikTok, you go to YouTube, you go to Instagram, and all of the comments that you read, there are thousands and thousands of comments that I've gone through of people saying that there's massive reverse racism that's been happening in this country. All right? For example, someone mentioned about women. Have we not had women being elected to city council outside of DEI for the last 20 years? Linda Milhaven, she's here. She was here, elected here before DEI, was she not? None of you got in here due to DEI. Rommel and Johnny, Mexican and Filipino, have been here for 7 and 17 years, and not due to DEI. We do not need DEI, all right? Represent us and get DEI, the World Economic Forum's ideals, out. It is indeed social engineering. Get it out of our lives. And by the way, we are a conservative city. We are not a progressive city. All right, if you want to go to a liberal city, go elsewhere. Go to a liberal city. It's a shithole. That's why you're here, to tell Scottsdale, you know what, to accept illegal migrants. We do not want illegal migrants here. Do not allow DEI.
Thank you, Zenaida. Thank you very much. And seeing no more speakers on the board, that wraps up the comments for item number 14. So I couple of names on the board, but I just want to start with, first off, thanking all of you for being here tonight. Very lively conversation, and I appreciate your passion and your participation in this civic process, and we definitely like to hear from you, even if at the end of the day we don't agree. Thank you for showing up. So personally, I'm a native of Scottsdale, lived here all my life, went to elementary school and high school and college at ASU. I just want to say that personally, my experience is that we have evolved tremendously as a city. I mean, the difference between when I was in grade school and where we are now is phenomenal. It's great. And I also want to observe, I've been not only in the political process, I've been a practicing attorney in Scottsdale since 2006. And diversity, equity, and inclusion is alive and well and highly valued in Scottsdale, Arizona. So, and allow me just a few more minutes here. As a city, as your mayor, I am committed to abiding by and enforcing all federal and state laws which faithfully advance the principles set forth in our U.S. Constitution, which ensures dignity, rewards hard work, and excellence. The future I envision for Scottsdale is where every one of our residents has equal opportunity to dream big and achieve their goals. Scottsdale is a diverse city. We're all here. We're evidence of that. And we are dedicated to supporting each other and those who live, work, or visit our city. Scottsdale will continue to prioritize merit-based hiring, performance reviews, and promotions that reward individual skill, work ethic, and productivity. We are a welcoming city, and make no mistake, we are open for business to everybody. Now, listening to all the speakers, I can tell you, I pretty much agree with the majority of individuals here. But what I didn't hear is the tangible impact that DEI or a department dedicated to that has on our hiring, our welcoming as a community, the way we do business, the way we treat employees. You've seen several former employees here that preceded DEI in any diversity training. I happen to be one of them. I was elected to city council, not because I'm a woman. I agree with whoever just said that. Who knows? You know, I rest on my skill set, and we all should do the same. So I want you to rest assured, no matter the outcome of tonight's vote, that if there is evidence of discrimination and being anything other than the qualities that I've just espoused, you definitely call me. I'm easy to find. And so with that, I will turn this over to the speakers that have recorded their interest in voting. Councilwoman McCallan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm simply going to make a motion that the mayor direct the city manager to schedule this item for a work study session at a future meeting, and that we continue this action item that we do not continue it until we can have a work study session on item 14.
I'll second, and I'd like to speak to my second.
Please.
First of all, once again, I am humbled by the people of this community. It has been such a pleasure serving Scottsdale. The talent in this community, the heart in this community is simply amazing. You guys make me laugh, you make me cry, you make me think, you make me a better person. And that's really the foundation of our democracy, isn't it? It's about working together, listening to each other, and doing things so that we can all thrive and all be safe. And so I absolutely want to second my colleague's motion. If there is a problem with our diversity, equity, and inclusion department, let me tell you, yeah, we've had it. It was called something else. You don't like the name, folks? Change the name. Don't change the process. Don't change the belief in it. And I want to be clear that the policemen that are keeping you safe tonight, they were hired based on merit. And the water scientists that are making sure you can drink and survive tap water, yeah, they were hired based on merit. This ordinance was done behind the scenes without a public process and serves no purpose. The claim by my colleagues that they desire to have merit-based hiring, I got good news for everybody who wrote, and we heard from hundreds of people. And the few people who wrote in support of the ordinance, what did they say? They said, we demand merit-based hiring. I got good news for you. For as long as I have been in Scottsdale, and for long before that, this city has been a merit-based hiring city. And what about the training that is so offensive? Let's talk about that training. Our community programs include dinner and dialogue. That certainly sounds poisonous. We support community diversity partners and multi-city regional unity festival and walk, and the Mayor's Committee on Employment of People with Disabilities. Those are the programs that are at risk today for political gains because somebody up here didn't understand how the city operates, the programs we have in place, and we're willing to risk it for some kind of political gain. Now let's talk about how did we end up with this horrible ordinance? As I mentioned, it was done without community process. And I get it. When we get up here as council members, I've been up here 6 years, we don't know a whole lot, okay? Anybody can get elected as long as you get the people who, think that they represent you. That's fine. We're up here to learn. And the way you get an ordinance done is, A, you identify a need, and often that need is identified by the very community that you serve. And then you start a community process, just like we did with every ordinance that we have that pertains to social and environmental issues. We bring the community together because the 7 of us don't know everything, so we have to listen to you. And then we bring in the experts, and we bring in our staff, and we design an ordinance that actually solves a problem and does not undermine anybody, but lifts everybody up. That was not done. Let me tell you something else. We have work study sessions. I have spent more time in the last 6 years at work study sessions. A work study session is an informal way for this city council to discuss issues because we have to do it in a public process, but we can't just vote on something without hearing about each other. So that's the purpose of a work study session. There have been no work study sessions. Nobody on this council who supported this ordinance asked me my opinion, asked me about my life's experience, nor did they ask you about yours. This is an ordinance that is aimed at accomplishing nothing and solving problems that never existed, and sadly sends a message to the world that this international destination is not open for all. There is not one policy at the city of Scottsdale that will change if this ordinance is passed, but the downside risks are endless. We are better together. We are better when we have an Office of Diversity, because it enables us to educate the public, create events where people meet people they would otherwise not meet, and it ensures that the people we hire are the best and the brightest. You cannot say you support diversity, you support inclusion, you support keeping Scottsdale open for all, and vote for this ordinance. You know, I've been told, I hate being called a politician, and I've been told that there's a difference between politicians and leaders. Politicians say one thing and do another, and leaders deliver what they say, and they deliver for the people they represent. I encourage my colleagues, if they have concerns, they should support my colleagues' motion. We should have community meetings. We should discuss the dangers of DEI that one of our speakers mentioned. None of those exist here in the city, but if they do, let's have those community meetings. Let's have the work study session. Find those problems and root them out, as my colleague said. I just want to end with a photo that already appeared on previously with us. There we go. This is Scottsdale for All. This is the picture that my colleagues supporting this ordinance said is poisonous. This is not who we are as a community. And again, I'll give my colleagues who are new to this council some space. There's a lot to learn when you become a council member. Please support the motion on the table. Let's continue this discussion. Let's truly root out problems if there are any and find ways to make this better. And again, you don't like the name of the department? We can change that. Let's not change the values that stands for. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other requests to speak, there's a motion and a second on the table, and that is for a continuance and work study session. So I'm going to go ahead and take a vote on that, and all those in favor of this idea, register your vote.
City Clerk, register a no for me, please.
Thank you. The motion fails 5-2. Seeing no speakers on the board. Well, let me speak to that. Do you all want to do this over again and do a work study? I don't see the point of that. You've all been here. I think that would not be a good use of your time or the city's resources. So having said that, work task forces actually do cost taxpayer money, and we've heard what you have to say. If we can, Councilman Quasman.
I'll speak to the whole vote after this motion closes.
I don't have a motion on the table.
Okay, so we're in the final vote. Okay. I want to talk about, there was a specific story that was brought up that I wanted to talk about a professor that was at ASU Law. And that professor, the professor was in criminal law. And that day, you know, most 1L students they have to take criminal law because criminal law is it's a required course. It's going to be on the bar. And Professor Dressler was a visiting professor. He was one of the most famous criminal law professors in the country. And 1/3 of the law school class was there. The subject of the class, I will make sure, Madam Mayor, I will get to the point. Yeah.
Councilman Quasman has the floor, so please be respectful.
The subject of the class, was attempt. And within the first 3 minutes, the professor talked about Senator Ted Cruz, who was running for president at that time. Senator Cruz made a phrase and said that values coming out of New York are not the values of the rest of the country. Fine, he's running for president, fine. But Professor Dressler, in a very impassioned, very, almost to the point of tears, role, stated the following. He said, when he talked about those New York values, he's talking about the Jews. And that's what he wants for you. That's what he thinks. I was in the class. Yep. He said, you know what he means when he said New York values? He means, pause, the Jews. That's just what he said. So, I stood up in the class, and I said that you can't do this, right? And the rest of the story that was told is a true story. Here's the next part of it. And I think it's important, and it gets to the point of this vote. When there was a petition that was sent around to discipline me at the law school, I was called into the Dean of Students' office, and we had a discussion. And at that time, I was able to show the Dean of Students Professor Dressler's personal Facebook page. And on the cover of his personal Facebook page was a picture of a dog urinating on a picture of Ted Cruz. Now, what's the point and what's the connection to tonight? There is a purposeful conflation between intentions of those who do not believe in certain government programs and those who have a heart that's aimed true and caring toward a diverse crowd, toward a diverse community, to a belief in equity, to a belief in inclusion. Because the definitions of diversity, equity, and inclusion are wonderful. They're wonderful. Nobody questions it. Diversity brings together people from different backgrounds and different viewpoints. It enhances decision-making. It prevents groupthink. Equity is a centuries-old concept of law. It boils down to treating people fairly. And who could object to making people feel welcome where they live and work? You're doing a good job at it. The problem is where the rubber meets the road. The problem is that DEI, as practiced here and elsewhere, it runs policies through the lens of race and sex and other identity categories. It actively prevents diversity of viewpoint. It subverts equal opportunity in favor of an artificial equity outcome. It excludes those whose beliefs diverge from a narrow orthodoxy. Companies, as of today, that have moved away from DEI include the following. As of today: Disney, GE, PayPal, Comcast, Amazon, Bloomberg, McDonald's, Walmart, Lowe's, Ford, Jack Daniels, which I think we all need one after tonight, Harley Davidson, and John Deere. Scottsdale must be a city where all are welcome, and they're all welcome to build a future and a flourishing future for themselves and their families. A place where everyone is treated equally and fairly under the law. This ordinance does not get rid of our ADA compliance, nor does it get rid of our anti-discrimination ordinance. And I stand with the mayor when she stated that if there is ever an instance of discrimination in this city, I will stand shoulder to shoulder, along with everybody on this dais, to fight discrimination. Madam Mayor, members of this council, we don't need another government program that is, what we've heard, doesn't do much at all. We don't need another government program. We don't need another government program that teaches children as little as 0 through 5. 0 through 5. Teaches children 0 through 5. It teaches children 0 through 5 a narrow.
We may need to take a recess. Excuse me, sir. Order, please. Let's take a 5-minute recess.
Madam Mayor, I'm almost done. I'll finish my sentence.
Well,
I'll finish my sentence, then we're done.
We all sat here and listened to everyone in the room. Please show respect, which is what you're asking for from us.
0 through 5. Programs with 0 through 5. A very narrow viewpoint. We're better than that. We believe in equality and equal justice under the law. And that is all.
We're not taking public comment anymore. Thank you. Thank you, Adam. I'm sorry, Councilman Quasman. Vice Mayor DeBascus.
I move to adopt ordinance 4662.
Second.
Thank you. Before I register the vote, I am going to, let's just register our votes. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item 15. This is another request by 4 members of the City Council to adopt Resolution 13353 that would direct charter officers and the presiding city judge to consider all positions working remotely and develop a plan to return employees to work in office in a timely manner. We received 2 requests for public comment. I think that's all we've got right now, so I'll open it up for public comment, starting with Victor Assad. Yeah. Go right ahead.
My name is Victor Assad, and I've been a Scottsdale resident for 11 years, living near Old Town. And I saw this item of the agenda, and because I have worked with this issue in private business, I wanted to speak with you all, and what I'm speaking to, I've shared these documents with all of you. Based on, and what I'm really advising is caution with this, and that I believe if you move forward with this, recalling people back into the office, you're going to drive up costs, you're going to have turnover, and it will not go well based on empirical research. And based on the research for over 10 years, and I'm sorry, did I start with 3 minutes? Oh, here it is, never mind. 10 years on home-based and hybrid work, I urge you not to do this. In 2011 and 2012, I implemented a hybrid and home-based work model for Medtronic's coronary and peripheral stenting business based in Santa Rosa, California. It was a great success. The company aimed to reduce office space costs and redirect the money to research and development to create life-saving stents. It was very successful. Our business saved over $2 million annually from reduced real estate costs and benefited from a 22% improvement in remote worker productivity, improved morale, less turnover, and easier recruiting. Plus, the employees loved saving the commute time. I have submitted this case study, which goes over several other studies at the time that found the same thing. But what I want to call to your attention in my last 30 seconds is an article that I sent to you by Brian Elliott, who looked at research at companies that had brought people back into the office that worked remotely or in hybrid work. Productivity, as that CEO said, many of them did not improve. They did not have any financial advantage, and in some of these companies, their stock price went down. Turnover went up. So I encourage you not to move forward with this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Daniel Schwartz. Is Daniel here? Okay. Seeing no further comments, I'll hear from Councilwoman McCallum.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Victor, for sending us that report. It was very informative, and I appreciate the time you took to reach out to all of us. That being said, I have a question for the city manager about bringing people back to work. Do you have an idea of how many positions this would be? That's number one. Number two, does this take into consideration jobs that were never in the city, that were telejobs, and the cost that it'll take to bring these people to work, and office, pollution, all of that? And then my third and final question is, does this affect flexibility work schedules like 410s, things of that nature?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember McCallum, maybe I'll take them in reverse order. We actually have an AR, which is administrative regulation that speaks to remote working and alternative work schedules. And it's my understanding that employees are encouraged and required to fill out a form. I believe that was probably in its earlier years of the implementation of the AR, and I believe our records are likely not up to date in that regard, so I do not have an accurate number of how many people are remote or are actually on an alternative work schedule. I'm very familiar with remote work and alternative work schedules, and what you find in municipal government, specifically I'll speak to the alternative work schedule first, is that many of our employees are already on one. I'll just use firefighters and police officers are case in point, who have what most people would refer to as not an 8 to 5, of course. I'll stop there just because I think that proves my point. But I think what this directs us to do as charter officers is to really dig into the situation and at our discretion allow those unique opportunities. Then I'll move to the middle point where I believe you asked about contract employees or people that were always remote. To my knowledge, I could certainly look to be corrected amongst the standing colleagues in the gallery, but I do not believe that is the case in any significant measure. And so I think this, I believe that answers your three questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilman Graham.
Was there a staff presentation for this item? Was that planned?
No, sir.
Okay. So this, we're talking about, we're really resolving to say that we prefer office work to remote work because we believe that we see companies doing this. I think there's a value up here that working together in person brings value to the taxpayers and the residents of Scottsdale. There was probably discussion in people's minds about, do we mandate a return to the office? And I just want to confirm, my understanding when I read this is that it is not compulsory, it is not airtight, and it leaves room for discretion for our managers, our directors, our executives, our supervisors. And I just want to ask the question to the city manager if that's how you interpret it, because I think that it's it's really just a balance between expressing our value for in-person work and allowing flexibility with our professionals. Thank you, Mr. Caton.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Graham, that's exactly how I receive it and read it. I also think we're in a unique situation with the city of Scottsdale with, I'll call it, the increased number of charter officers, that if there is not consistent direction from the city council, then you could have some differences of implementation within the respective areas. So a consistent message in this regard is likely more needed in an organization such as ours, and I again receive it exactly as it sounds like you interpret it. It's really our requirement, as I'm receiving it, to understand the situation to all of the levels and the numbers, and then make sure it's still serving the business purpose. There are certainly, I would imagine, some circumstances where employees have personal situations they have gotten used to and made life choices around that type of work schedule. I will tell you from an interim city manager perspective, I'm certainly very sensitive to that, and we'll be mindful as we develop a transition plan based upon city council's preference.
See, I think that's a good signal, because we're not, we're not a startup. We're not all in the same bullpen. We've got 2,700 professionals, and to what I hear you saying, I think is going to be appreciated and valued, to have a unified message that this is a value of our city. So, Mr. Caton, thank you very much for those responses, and I'll move to adopt Resolution 13353.
Second.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I'm not trying to cut off any more debate, but I'm ready to vote when my colleagues are.
Let me hear from, I hear your second, and I'd like you to speak to that as soon as we hear from Councilwoman Whitehead. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Caton, this ordinance, or this adopted procedure states that remote work, in-person office work is preferred to remote work because working in person allows increased efficiency for residents. Can you provide data that backs that up?
Just a point of clarification, Madam Mayor and Council Member Whitehead, are you speaking to the administrative regulation?
I'm speaking to the item that's on the agenda.
Oh, okay. I just wanted, okay, thank you for that clarification, because we had the administrative regulation and that's not adopted yet, so I was misunderstanding your question there. I would say it's twofold. When we start looking at our workforce and how we deliver our services, we have many individuals, I would estimate approximately 2/3 of our staff members that are in the field every day. As I started to reference earlier, I think our first responders are great examples where they're not working remote. And we have a number of other individuals, employees that are in the field, and they're not applicable to a work remote situation. I have been in other organizations over the last 28 years, and this became much more prevalent in public and private sector through the COVID environment. I think what we've seen, particularly in public service, is a return to the workplace in many instances. And specifically to your question about efficiencies in delivering public service, to our customers and even internal customers, I do find that in many instances, in person does deliver a higher level of customer service.
Okay, but you don't have any specific data that you can show us, because it was pretty compelling data that we received about, and my own personal experiences. I have professional children. I have certainly worked remote for many decades, and nobody has ever accused me of slouching. So I would like to see data. Again, I think what we're doing is making decisions blindly. Also, how many, you mentioned many city employees, like if you work in solid waste and you drive a truck, you don't work remote. So how many of our employees currently work remotely?
Yeah, Madam Mayor and Councilmember Whitehead, I think that's part of this value being sent from City Council is at a minimum that we understand that number, and we do not have that today. Our forms are not up to date as far as employees filling that out.
Okay, so we don't know. So we're being asked to adopt a policy that prefers in-person office work, but we really don't know how many people currently don't work in the office, or what they do, or how their performance is. Has there been any studies, or have you done any work to identify problems with those that work remotely? I mean, I'm just asking questions. It seems, again, I'm being asked to vote on something and not provided any data to back up the assertions, not provided any data to make an educated vote. Please tell me what you've done to evaluate people who work remotely. And, you know, working remotely, let's face it, I mean, that's a pretty broad stroke. Do I think that people need to get together and meet each other and talk around the water cooler? Yeah, I actually do. And I like the idea of people working, you know, sometimes in the office or finding ways to be together. But what this, as I read it, is kind of pushing for everybody to return to work. And I think the data that I've seen is 70% of our workforce doesn't live in Scottsdale. I mean, if I worked in Scottsdale but was allowed 3 times a week to work from home, and I lived in Peoria, that might work. But if I have to make that drive every single day, why not take the same job in Peoria? So again, I don't mind this if it was backed by data and we knew exactly what changes we were making. So, you know, I appreciate Councilman Graham saying that gives you flexibility, but don't you have flexibility today?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Whitehead, I heard a number of questions in there. I'll presume the last one was the one you would like me to address. And so what I would say is that it is very important when you have 6 charter officers from just being one of those in a temporary position to have the message from the board of directors, from the city council of your preference, quite frankly, of the organization and the governance model. I believe that message cannot be overstated of the type of organization and the culture that we want to develop here.
Okay, so you're saying that you do have the flexibility, but the problem is you don't have the flexibility over the treasurer's office.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Whitehead, certainly did not, you twisted my words there. I don't believe I said that.
I didn't mean to.
Okay. I don't believe that there was any insinuation amongst my other colleagues, but rather a consistent message across the organization amongst the various areas when you have different charter officers seeing those. So the consistencies, I do feel the direction from City Council. I think a general policy statement is the way I intend read this. In addition to our management opportunities to use discretion, I will mention that there are certain positions. I mentioned the ones that are specifically meant to deliver services in the field, first responders, people driving solid waste trucks, for example. I think there are, in many instances, positions where we compete with the private sector, and those are potential opportunities where I see some lenience or some flexibility accounting positions, for example, people in finance, people in information technology. We certainly don't want to put our organization at a disadvantage as competing with that top talent. And so again, as I read here, that discretion to make those choices based upon the highest delivery of service to our organization.
Okay, I definitely appreciate that. And again, I appreciate the fact that Councilman Graham stressed that this is it gives you the flexibility to decide. And yes, we will lose people to the private sector, no question. But I will just reiterate that the only data I have received is from a member of the public who spoke and who opposes opposes what we're voting on. And it's just against against what I've agreed to as a councilwoman to vote on something without data, without knowing the impacts, without even knowing the number of employees that it could impact. So I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Whitehead. To be clear, the charter prohibits council, mayor or council, from directing individual employees. We can only provide direction, policy direction, to the charter officers. So we're giving you a clear message that this is how we feel, and we'd like you to work on it, all the charter officers. So I don't think there should be any confusion. We can't require or mandate that people come back to work. It's part of the charter that we cannot do that. So I don't want to spend any more time on this. I know, Vice Mayor DeBoscos.
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 13353.
There's a motion and a second.
Wonderful.
So
let's vote.
I'm going to let Councilwoman Littlefield speak to it if you wish, and otherwise take a vote.
Thank you. I do support this idea of coming back to work just so that the city can offer the highest and best service that we can to our citizens at all times, that there would be someone here to answer questions and to help people out. I think that meeting citizens face to face helps to solve issues, helps to solve problems. And I think, especially in economic development and areas like that, it really creates an atmosphere where questions are answered and perhaps long-term issues can be resolved more quickly. So I do believe that this is a good thing. I'm not saying everybody has to come back to work tomorrow. That is not my intent. What I'm saying is, if we can do this, people should be able to come to work and to serve our citizens and our city with the highest level of service possible. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you. With that, please register your vote. Thank you. Turning next to agenda item number 7, and that is the parking structure.
Mayor, I'm sorry, we have item 16. It's the water item.
But we took 7 off the consent agenda.
Oh, you want to do 7 then?
Yeah,
16?
I would like to do that. Because there's no public comment on the water, right? Are there public comments?
There's no one signed up, Mayor.
Yeah, so let me take the people that are in the audience that are speaking first. Because all the staff, we're going to be here through the duration. In any event, item number 7, which I pulled off the consent agenda, is the parking structure in Old Town Scottsdale design build pre-construction services contract for the sum of $1.629 million. Does anyone have the presentation handy? I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I want that one slide where it shows the actual structure that we're paying $1.629 million
pull that up.
To invest in. But this involves a parking structure, an above ground, 2 stories, 200 spaces, parking lot at Brown Avenue, and I think it's First, right across from the old Mission Church, and where the farmers market currently goes on a regular basis now for 15 years. So I wasn't part of this decision. There are people on the council that were, but it was approved under the prior administration. And I know from working with the stakeholders and being friends with the stakeholders, I was not involved, but I know it's been a hotly debated and activated discussion. And I'll tell you, I've met with some of the stakeholders, many of them. I've heard from so many citizens, don't let don't scrape, do away with the farmer's market. I think this is going to be a really big deal. I don't think many people know that this is going to be the outcome of it. And by the time, I got here a week, was on the consent agenda, and pulled it off then, and now pulling it off again. I think that once people learn about this, it's going to be a really big deal. More importantly, and I ran to be your mayor, to do things as good as we can do in Scottsdale, Arizona, and make Scottsdale as good as it can be, and most importantly, high-quality development and revitalization of Old Town Scottsdale. This takes us 2 steps back, at a minimum, in my opinion. So my ask today is to continue this, and I have some really key reasons why I'd like to continue this. And by the way, I met with some stakeholders yesterday. I want to do you right and good, and I want to get the parking lot in the best location, the most aesthetically pleasing format, so that we don't have a monolithic structure, in the center of the centerpiece of our old town that we're not going to ever see go away, and there's not going to be much to do with it after this is done. That's not at all the view that we were on the page that was the parking structure. That was in the presentation materials.
Mayor, members of council, this was in the presentation.
Well, that's not what I'm talking about then. There was a slideshow that maybe Terrence, maybe you can find it, I think. Anyway, I won't digress. If it's in the packet somewhere, so because I had it on my desk upstairs. Nonetheless, my key reasons for pulling this and wanting to work on it personally, not by committee, not death by committee, not so it rots, and eventually is forgotten about. But from my understanding, none of the stakeholders that advocate for more parking like this location. None of them. So it seems like a compromise of disagreement, which, again, I think we can do better than this. The second reason I would really like to see this continued so that I personally have time to make this my #1 priority. The revitalization of Old Town is one of my top #1 priorities. And I will dedicate myself to coming up with a solution that is way better than what we're looking at right now. And it won't involve getting rid of the farmer's market. So not only does no one seem to like this, but as I mentioned, when the general public learns about this and is impacted, the construction that will go on in Old Town, these merchants will be impacted for a very long period of time, which is never good in that area. Not only that, it will bring more traffic to the area, which I don't think is a good thing in that iconic, historic area. So what I'd like to do, 2 options. I've already been in touch with Honor Health. They have several parcels around the city that the city has actually worked with them on in the past, some of which were the city of Scottsdale's property in the past. And there's no commitments yet, obviously, because we just started this dialogue when the panic set in of what this is going to do for me. But there is a commitment to work on identifying a parcel in the area that I believe would prove to be a much better solution and would not have a negative impact on business owners, residents first, business owners first, or visitors to the area. How long is this going to take to construct? Do you have any idea?
Mayor, members of council, we're planning about a year for design and about a year for construction.
Can you imagine the entire block being ripped up for a year there? Yeah, I can't. That's going to be not a great result. I'd love to see it on the periphery of Old Town, whether it's Goldwater or Drinkwater, and I'd rather see it bigger. I'd rather, if we're going to do that, and see it a design quality that becomes an amenity or a artistic for our city, not just a big cement structure in that location. So working with Scottsdale Healthcare or other parcels that I believe would be viable. I think it's important to take a hard look and a fast look, not wasting time. The second alternative is to make the existing typical parking structure of 2 stories, 200 spaces. By the way, it's going to cost us $16.2 million, I believe the cost of this is. But take a look at, if it has to be, if we're stuck with this location, which I don't believe we will be, after a thorough deep dive into this idea and making it happen, I would like to see it become an activated resource, and that will include, you know, even though it's a 2-story parking garage, making it much more advanced architecturally and allowing for the farmers market to still maintain a presence on top, making the top more of a park-like or amenity, community gathering space. And I know that's an option because we've been working on renderings for the last week on that, some of which that I've shown to the, well, it's only one rendering, but it's dramatic, which I've shared with the stakeholders, some of the stakeholders, not all of them. And I think there's no question if you put what we're about to spend $1.629 million on and be stuck in the process, and compared to what you can do with it and making this an amenity and not lose the farmers market, I think it's worth the, you know, put it at a max month delay to come back with the answers and the viable solutions. So with I hope I can get the support of my council members to indulge me in pushing this down a little bit, not to, again, let it suffer the consequences, death by delay. That's not at all what I'm looking to do. With that, I'd like to, oh, is there anyone on there? With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Mayor, we do have 3 public comments on this item.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I forgot. I don't see them on my board. Oh, they're here. Pardon me.
Mayor, the 3 to speak are Dan Isaac, French Thompson, and Bob Pejman.
Oh, they're back on number 7. There we are. Dan Isaac. Followed by French Thompson and Bob Pejman.
Dan Isaac, address still on record. Mayor, thank you for your comments because I align very closely with many of them. I believe that this parking structure is bad for 3 fact-based reasons. 1, the majority of this council campaigned and preaches about being good stewards of our taxpayer money. There is yet to be a parking study that says this specific area has a parking deficit other than on 12-day spring training games. Therefore, why would we spend more than $15 million of our taxpayer money to build a parking structure that will be largely underutilized and vacant for as much as 90% of the year? That is not being fiscal stewards. Second, as you mentioned, this is one of the most historic parts of our city. And the majority of our council members repeatedly talk about the importance of preserving our Western heritage. The old Adobe Mission is arguably the most historic structure in Old Town. To put a 2-story parking structure immediately across the street from it is maddening to anybody who values the history of our city. Not to mention, the entire surrounding area is generally 1-story, Western-themed retail and commercial enterprises. There is no amount of money that you can spend wisely that will make a 2-story parking structure fit into this area. And the third fact base you have mentioned, Mayor, is that the farmers market is a beloved venue for hundreds of Scottsdale residents and supports dozens of our vendors. This would permanently displace the farmers market. Now, when the prior council approved moving forward on this, people mistakenly said that the bond language required us to put it there. That is factually incorrect. The bond language said, here are 3 proposed sites, but they are not exhaustive, and the city will determine the appropriate site based on business needs. So, to summarize, more than $15 million of your tax dollars being spent on something that is unnecessary. It will ruin the look of the most historic part of our city, and it will permanently displace the farmers market. Not only should this be delayed, it should be canceled. However, if you can find space in Honor Health, I would fully support that, because there are areas of the city that need more parking. This is not one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. French Thompson, followed by Bob Petchman.
Good evening. My name is French Thompson. My address is on record, and I hate following a liar. That guy hates the downtown. He has never said anything good about the downtown. He runs it down all the time. He's never supported anything in the downtown. He says it's going to permanently ruin the farmers market. There is absolutely no proof of that. They could move 3 blocks over to Goldwater and 2nd Street, be there for 2 or 3 years, and move right back, right up on the roof. The mayor said she'd like to see it up on the roof. She had some guy come in and make a presentation, said we can put it up on the roof. You just move it a little bit, Dan. It's not going to permanently ruin anything. The fact that it was in a bond, it's been voted. There's $21 million in the 2019 bond for this garage to be in this area. This garage was built to have 2 more floors put on top of it. The fact that you are now literally trying to make this not happen for years and years is like, I want to just tell you right now, if I tell you how I really feel, I'm going to get arrested for profanity and other terrible things, because this is the most terrible injustice to the merchants in the downtown area, and that guy is consistently always lying about us. And I'm down there. When I'm down there every single day of the week, and I'm seeing what we need and what we don't need, he's not there. You guys aren't there. You don't know. You need to listen to the people who are on the ground. Seriously, Mayor, I voted for you. If you want to make a cosmetic change to that thing, fine, but put it there. We've been waiting for 28 years for this to happen. I would love to just throw up right here on this podium, listening to you want to change this. Don't do it. Put it there. Don't listen to this guy. Don't listen to Jason Alexander. Both of them hate the downtown. Everything they say is against the merchants in the downtown, and they don't even know anything about them. They don't go in the stores. They don't do business with them. Jason Alexander's never once been in my business. Dan's never once been in my business. He goes in there and he says, hey, these developers have bribed on Bob Pedgman to get art, all this stuff. Those are lies, Dan. They're just, and you're a loser too. You're a loser. You ran for city council. You won the least amount of votes. Why don't you, as a loser, get the hell out of town? Go to where somebody wants you.
French.
But don't cut down your city, because that's what you're doing. You're cutting down your city. Mayor,
French.
I would love to see you support this garage and put it where it is and make it look beautiful. A first-year architectural student could make it look good with the mission. And if you want to call it the Mission Parking Garage, go right ahead.
Thank you. Bob Petchman.
Borowski, council members. My name is Bob Pedgman. That's a tough act to follow. But you know, I seriously feel like I'm in Twilight Zone, okay? So one is that, why the fear-mongering about the farmer market? That's really, you know, gaslighting and fear-mongering. I mean, you're telling people the farmer's market is going to disappear, so they don't support this design. During the construction of this parking lot, the farmer's market can be relocated across the street to this empty Honor Health lot that we're leasing currently. And after we build this parking lot, they can go back to their original ground floor level with now a roof above their head. And if we design this parking properly through the outreach, it's going to be a tall ceiling above them so that they can be on the first floor in their current location forever, now with a roof above their head, rain or shine. So that's fear-mongering. The farmer's market is not going to be replaced. And anybody you tell that to, I'm going to say that's a lie. Okay. Number two, who are these residents or stakeholders that oppose this? For 2 years, we fought this to happen, which is on the consent agenda now. For 2 years, nobody spoke against it. In writing or in person. Asani knows that. Cogs knows that. The historic, in the Old Town Historic Association knows that. We're these magical people that appeared all of a sudden that you have to save them from this ugly building. And it's not going to be an ugly building because what's on the consent agenda right now has an element of significant stakeholder public outreach. That's the chance for your architect or whoever else to influence that design. It should blend in with a mission. It can blend in with a mission. That can be done. So this is all, I just can't believe I'm here again with the same stuff, by the way, that David Ortega pushed, and now you guys are pushing here. The honor held lot is going to cost money. That is a very, very, that's a prime lot. That's not going to be able to be purchased for under $5 million. So now you're adding $5 million to the cost. Building it on the farmers on the honor held lot will make you go underground, which means that the whole design, the whole construction, you're going to end up spending $10 million more on this. You can simply go on top of what that lot is. That lot was, I heard that, where is it here? Oh, it's short-sighted to use that lot. It's not short-sighted. That lot was built from its inception to be built 2-3 stories above. That is the lot. It can be made to look good. We don't need to spend $10 million more and pursue something else. This battle has been fought now. The bond was passed in 2019. 5 years later, it was tooth and nail to get where we are now, and now let's go back to square one. I'm not for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. So my ask was to do a continuance for not more than 30 days so that we can gather information on a high quality being the key, design before we commit to paying Chase building team the $1.629 million. Once we get that signed, we're not switching gears from their design on this because then it'll be an enforceable contract. And, if I'm all wet on this idea, and I'd love to have you gentlemen work with me on it. So the people that said, the stakeholders, not only the general public that has heard about this, people that I'm sure are here today. French Thompson told me yesterday he didn't think it was an ideal site. John Rosenberg told me it wasn't his selection, and I heard that you didn't love the selection either. So the information, I think it's a compromise that's not of any of us. So that's my within the next 30 days, or at least a strong lead on it, and at a minimum, a better design. And so I think putting a farmer's market on the top of something like the Civic Center parking garage is unrealistic. I think that's completely unrealistic. So with that, I have a motion. Is there anyone that wants to speak?
I'll second it.
Oh, you were on the list before, so sorry, Zenaida, you can go ahead and speak. That's right. Sorry. Go ahead. You have to go to the podium, though.
So my issue is I shop at the farmer's market every Saturday, and I have for the last decade. And if this is Honor Health that we're talking about, which is owned by BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, they are trying to destroy the organic food supply in America and destroy farmers' markets. So I do not support anything that involves BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, and hospitals. Hospitals are not interested in organic farmers' markets succeeding.
Thank you. Councilman Graham.
Madam Mayor, I will, may I make a few remarks?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. So, our downtown companies desperately need more parking. When customers and visitors drive to Old Town and downtown, you want to have somewhere to park. The voters in 2019 gave us $20 million, and they demanded us to build another Old Town parking structure. And that was approved by 70%. We're hiring a top architectural firm who will design an aesthetical, sensitive, and cohesive structure to the area. And as far as the building height in the area, across the street there's a 4-story tower. So let's remember that. One of the speakers mentioned that there is the chance for public outreach, that the vendor is required to obtain your feedback as they construct it to be cohesive with the Adobe architecture, and we're going to make sure they live up to that. When the voters approved $20 million and they demanded we build another parking structure in Old Town, that was before we supercharged spending $35 million on the Civic Center, and we've made massive investments to improve and expand Scottsdale Stadium. So here we have even a supercharged area with more crowd size, with bigger crowd size and more frequency. So one of the things is that we spent significant time as a council on site selection. We started where we should start, with the parcels that we own. The farmers market is built for additional structures on top of it. When it was first installed, it has a substructure that can hold additional levels. So I think that moving forward, this meets both the spirit and the intent of the voter-approved 2019 bonds. And then I'll just wrap up my comment here. I want to read 4 brief sentences into the record from one of the downtown stakeholders that we heard from today. This location is closest to the merchants who desperately need it. This location will provide much-needed parking for Scottsdale Stadium, Scottsdale Arts, and Civic Center events. The ground level of the parking structure can be designed with more height so that once completed, the farmers market will benefit from having a covered area for their events. They can have farmers market events rain or shine. And during construction of the farmers market, there are many areas that they can lease or use during that interim period of time. So I think moving forward with this meets the spirit and the letter of what voters told us to do, and it's based on significant outreach and study by this and prior councils. And I will make an alternate motion, Madam Mayor, to adopt Resolution 13338. Thank you.
Before we move on, Councilwoman, oh, we don't have a second. You're on the board.
Yes.
Yeah, would you like to speak?
Yes,
I didn't hear a second, though. I'm sorry.
Second.
Yeah, I would just like to say this is something that has gone on for years and years and years with no solution. And it's time we made a solution to this and we fixed this problem once and for all. The citizens of Scottsdale in the last bond election agreed with that, and they voted for $21 million for Old Town parking as a part of the $330 million bond funds that they approved. It was approved by 70% of the voters, so it wasn't a slim margin. The city has so far allocated $2.5 million of the $21 million amount to add a 54-space public parking level to the underground parking at the Artisan apartment complex. That leaves $18.5 million to be spent on Old Town parking structure or expanding one. The farmers market has always been the earmarked lot for expansion, and that has been true. Even Dan Worth admitted that in one of his video clips. That's where the parking garage for downtown is intended to be and is planned to be. The city just spent $50 million to overhaul and repurpose the Civic Center Mall, and they did a beautiful job. It's great. However, they did not include any extra parking to accommodate the anticipated large crowds that might go there. We need the parking near the mall. This has an entrance to that mall, to the center. Therefore, adding extra levels to the parking farmers market lot makes logical sense for the use of this money, and it's what we've promised our citizens that we would do. It's, even if it's only for this one purpose, to help the Civic Center Mall and to help the people who have their businesses right there and don't have adequate parking to support their clientele. The added levels to this parking garage could also handle parking needed for spring training, as parking is not always adequate at that time in that area, and other additional things that go on in the area as our special events occur during the year. I believe we should do this. We should do it as soon as we can in that parking lot. If we add it, if we build it so we can build extra height to it, we can build a really nice place for the farmers market to be there, and that's fine too. Nobody's trying to get rid of that. We all want it. And I think it's the best, most logical way to go, and it's what the citizens voted for and put the money up for so that we could have the bond money to do it. And we're wasting time, people. We need to do it as soon as we can.
Councilwoman Whitehead.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to my second. We're not proposing to not build a parking garage. The old adage, measure twice, cut once, that applies here. If the current mayor, who was not part of the process, and it was an agonizing process, nobody liked the idea of putting a two-story parking garage right in the heart of historic downtown. So if the current mayor, who was not part of the process, once a month to evaluate other options, I fully support that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no other speakers, do you want to rephrase the amended motion, please?
Oh, Madam Mayor, I just made an alternate motion to approve the resolution. I can recite the number if you desire.
Just go ahead and repeat your alternate motion then.
Oh, alternate motion is to approve Resolution 13338. City Attorney, is that satisfactory?
Yes, Mayor, that's a satisfactory motion, but our rules do provide that motions to continue take priority over other motions.
So let's proceed with that vote. Motion to continue the item for not more than 30 days to, I don't even know what date that would be.
Mayor, it would be March 18th is
Okay.
the close council meeting.
So that's the active motion on the table. Please register your vote. That motion fails, and so I will turn now to the alternate motion. All those in favor of approving ordinance, I don't even know, agenda item number 7, please register your vote. Thank you very much. Moving right along. We are at the water and wastewater presentation.
Madam Mayor, I move. Yes. Just a break, just a bathroom break.
I don't know. Should we take a vote on this? No, I'm kidding.
Just a 2-minute bathroom break. Thanks.
Why don't we take 5 minutes? 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes, okay? We are moving on to item number 16, and let the record reflect there are no public comments on this agenda item. And if you want to speak on it, see Clerk Lane. Presenting on this item is Kevin Rose. It is a public hearing and presentation on proposed water and wastewater land use assumptions and infrastructure improvement plans. Go ahead, Kevin Rose, our interim Water Resources Executive Director. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. What I'm going to be presenting tonight is an update to our land use assumptions and infrastructure improvement plan for water and wastewater. And overall, what I want to paint is this is part of what we're trying to do related to our development fees. So this public hearing is part of the process that we have to follow per state statute. Now, the land use assumption report covers a period from 2026 to 2035. This must be updated every 5 years, just like our infrastructure improvement plan. And water has typically, or historically, has done this every 3 or 4 years. The land use assumption shows projections and changes in land use, densities, intensities, and pursuant of the general plan. We use that land use assumption to come up with our infrastructure improvement plan. Defines existing and future level of service. I'll go on the next slide on the level of service that we're required to define. We use equivalent demand unit, which is equal to one detached single-family dwelling unit based on our 1-inch water meter. We use this to estimate the cost of future and system expansion based on the land use assumptions, and the IIP timeline is the same as the LUA. Now, state law requires us to define the level of service, and they're different for water and wastewater. The water level of service is defined as a system's ability to meet the peak day demand per EDU. The wastewater's level of service is defined as a system's ability to meet the average annual day demand per EDU. Based on all that information, we use this to come up with our development fees. And currently, it's in draft. We're still working on it. And we use these development fees to charge offset costs associated with providing necessary public services to new development. Must be beneficial to the new development. It can't be used, the development fees, for existing services. And historically, Scottsdale has adopted the only water and wastewater development fees. As you see in the simple diagram there, we have to go with the LUA first, IIP, to look at our development fees. So the development fee process timeline started December 4th. We actually put this on a website, the LUA, the IIP plan, for those to review it. Then a public hearing meeting tonight, February 11th. Then April 8th, we'll come back and request City Council to adopt the LUA and IIP. We have to leave it open for 30 days, no more than 60 days. Then May 20th, if it is adopted, we'll be looking at to come for a public hearing on the development fee report, then request council to adopt those development fees. Then by September 15th, the new development fees would become effective. So on that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. And so how would you assess the fiscal health of the fee process and what developers are paying in? And do you see any sharp increases? That's kind of 3 questions, isn't it? I can put those piecemeal, unless you've got a good memory.
Mayor, Councilman Graham, Council, I'll do my best. So what we're seeing with the fees, and this is one reason why we went back and updated the LUA and the IIP, the past 3 years we have seen inflation really increase. Then we looked at the last year and we're starting to see it, I would say, decrease, but still high. Based on that, we know our development fees are lagging, and once we get the final report, we're able to present to the council what our findings are and our recommendations for a new development fee.
So you're not totally confident in the fiscal health of the process or of the current plan? Is that what you said?
Can you repeat the question there, Councilman Graham? I'm trying to understand.
So we're trying to understand what our costs are. Okay. Well, let me just ask this: you mentioned, because you mentioned some inflation. What in your opinion is driving the inflation?
We did come out of the COVID years. Again, we haven't updated the plan in 3 to 4 years. So as coming out of COVID, we noticed the costs went up. We are noticing costs are starting to go down on construction costs.
Right.
So based on that, we said we need to update our plan and look at our development fees to ensure the development fees are capturing the cost.
Okay. Well, we've approved some recent, major projects. So I hope we've been able to capture enough. I guess just in general, do you think we're capturing it? Are we capturing enough to cover our costs?
Councilman Graham, Mayor, Council, best way I can answer that, any current development that has happened or is in process or has been approved, those costs are captured under the current ones. We will be recommending increases once we get an idea what those increases are. Any future development will not be captured under those costs.
Okay, I understand. It's difficult to say. So, all right, thank you. Well, I'll move to accept this agenda item. I lost the resolution number.
A second?
Is there a vote tonight, Kevin?
No, Council.
Okay, I withdraw my
There's no vote
motion,
tonight.
my attempted motion. Yeah. and
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Call it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the second public comment. We have another opportunity for non-agendized public comment. We've received three requests. Zenaida, are you still here? Fortune? John Deal? Lee Koftel?
Hi there, Lee Koftel. I just wanted to celebrate one of the things that you said earlier today, which was that we were awarded the Best City to Raise a Family, and acknowledge the hundreds of awards that we've gotten just like that and for other things over the past 20-something years. So I just wanted to celebrate that, and what a great city we have to have won all those awards.
Well, that's a nice change of pace. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our final item. Hurrah. This is an item that I added to the agenda for consideration on the three options, and that is to agendize a work study discussion of the council in order to identify specific scope, structure, goals, and need or purpose of the task force created through resolution number 13335, and to look at the long-term sustainability of the city by examining fiscal, population, and conservation needs. And the reason I am asking to do this is because there was certainly a rush to the vote on this one, and while I supported the repeal of the sustainability plan, I did not and do not support re-impaneling or reorganizing a task force of seven residents who served on the last, not the same ones obviously, but that's how the prior task force was situated. And I don't think that worked out very well for anybody. And so I really think it's important for this council to have an open discussion about how we see this playing out. I asked the city treasurer to provide me, and one thing that was really difficult for me on this prospect of re-impaneling a task force to do this again, a do-over, albeit ideally with the right results, but as we see in that, you never know what's going to come out of a task force, or it depends on who's running it, who's interfacing with the charges. So all of those issues, I think, are ripe to discuss. I personally don't think we need a sustainability plan. I said that already. Our departments are doing that. I don't think we need to re-impanel a 7-member group of residents to do this again. But if that was the vote, and I get that, but now I think it's important to hone in and be more specific. And I learned from the city treasurer that $2.2 million was spent on the last task force. So that's problematic for me. I ran and got elected, presumably, about conserving taxpayer money. So doing this again without a real specific direction, and this, I'll use this also. I'm a big proponent of direct appointments. We could agree to use this as a trial run on direct appointments so that we have real good input and accountability for our task force members. And I also think we need to identify how long out, you know, what are the goals? How long is the task force going to be, have their charge and be together? What's their timeline? Is staff directing traffic on it? Are we, et cetera? So with that, I see some comments here, and I won't make a motion, but Councilwoman Whitehead.
We spent 2.2 million on what? Sorry.
The sustainability plan.
Okay. And we have...
Ridiculous, I agree.
Okay. So we call spending money with community meetings that were requested by Councilman Graham a waste of money. That's fine. What is the purpose of a new task force? I'm trying to understand what you're requesting here, Mayor. Are you requesting that we not have a task force?
So unfortunately, this is a whole nother issue I have with how the agenda is being done. This was a dual purpose agenda item, and it was one fell swoop of a vote. So I voted no because I don't want another task force impaneled, and I don't want to go down that road again. I think it's completely pointless and unnecessary, and that's beside the point. That was the vote. And so to answer your specific question, that's what we have already voted on. That's the ordinance, the sustainability plan repealed, but let's do it again with a new task force. So I have real concerns about that. I don't, you know, I'm sure everyone wants to be specific on this, what the task force is going to do. I'd probably rather see it be a subcommittee of the council that does this, or at best, but direct appointments would be amazing on this task force as a trial run. So anyway, you asked me a question. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you didn't interrupt me. You answered the question. I appreciate that. I'm just trying to understand. We have a commission for sustainability, and I just wonder why we would have a separate task force.
Again, that was part of the vote that took place.
Yeah, I understand, but I guess that would be part of the work studies. We could discuss whether or not we want a task force or whether or not we want to just use the commission that's already in place.
My motion and agenda item deals with the facts that we've got before us, and I would like to do a work study that explores what the goal, direction, and structure of the task force is for the benefit of obtaining a better outcome than we did last time.
Okay. Well, of course, I think the outcome was fine last time, but okay, that's fine. I can support that. Thanks.
Vice Mayor DeBascus.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I went to the community outreach program over the summer, I went around and I talked with several of the city staff, and I asked, I won't name the names, and I said, are you already doing this work? Is the sustainability office providing you additional goals? Is this something above and beyond your normal work? Or you're already working toward reducing water, things like that? And they said yes. The staff said yes. These are our goals, and the sustainability office is really just tracking them and putting them together. And so my impression from speaking with several of the experts that we've hired on the city staff is that this is their profession and they're excellent at it. And so maybe some of what we should consider is the opportunity to take what we are obligated to do by the general plan, which is have a sustainability plan, and direct the city manager to put that together with the experts that they have in-house, and maybe that could comprise our task force. That's just an idea, but But we do have in-house experts who are already doing a lot of this work, so maybe we don't need to spend a lot of money and a lot of resident time. So that's just a thought to consider, is maybe we look at number 2 and ask the city manager to give us some thoughts on that.
Thank you. Councilwoman McAllen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move to accept item 18 for a work-study session.
I'll second that. And I'll call the question.
You know, I'm going to let Councilman Graham speak to this first. Yeah, it was a choice.
A work study session or a future meeting?
That's right what this says.
Yeah, I asked for a work-study session, so, see, it's even in the title. So it is one of the options, sorry. There's some confusion on the agenda item there. Council.
At any point, if there is any, if there is any confusion, we could suspend the rule and allow for, and move to have a work study session as added to a possibility as a number 4 action.
Yeah, there's no question we can do that.
Okay, so I'm going to point of order real quick because there was a lot that happened right there. Councilmember McAllen moved to approve the item, but the motion should just be moved for item number 1. Is that what you meant to do?
No, I meant it is listed as, well, maybe I'll ask the city attorney. For item number 18, would the motion be just to accept item number 18 to create a work-study session related to Sustainability Task Force?
Yes, I think that that's an appropriate motion that fits into paragraph 1, the first option, to move this item forward to a work-study agenda. And it's properly on the agenda as agendize a future work-study session related to the Sustainability Task Force.
So, my apologies. I was reading the screen, but then, okay, I'm getting some head nods that I wasn't the only one confused. And then Councilmember Whitehead called the question. She called the question, but so I just wanted to respect the rules, the parliamentary order.
I didn't realize you wanted to speak. I just was thinking it was time to vote. Go ahead. I can take that back. I can not call the question.
Okay. Okay. And then is there a second for Councilmember? There's a second. Okay. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
So I see no other speakers on the board. I agree with what Vice Mayor DeBoscus just said, and I think I made the exact same point at the meeting that we took this up under. And based on my discussions, and I think I talked about this with Acting City Manager Bill Murphy, we're already doing everything we need to be doing. We're so advanced and we're cutting edge, and this is their jobs, to paraphrase what you said, and we have the best in the business, and we're looking to get the best in the business. And so I struggle with why we would do the task force again because you'll remember Bill Murphy left, and so there wasn't an opportunity to really hear from him at that time of that meeting. And I agree. I mean, I would be comfortable with the motion, making an alternate motion than what's on the table that says, first, direct the city manager to coincide with what Vice Mayor just said, to report back to the council on this. What are we missing? What do we need to do? What would a citizens task force need to accomplish? What's the purpose? Because $2.2 million on the task force is no small investment, and it's a process. And I would hate to see 7 new residents show up and then we do it all over again. And maybe we don't. I believe we don't need it. I've been on record. I heard what you just said, and I concur entirely. So, and when the city manager does report back to us, I believe it's going to be, we don't need this because we're doing it. This is our jobs in every department. So, but assuming that was a complete not the case, completely not the case, then we could do a work study session to come back and bring the task force together and ideally do a direct appointment experiment. But I'd rather see it be the former and not the latter. So that alternate, hearing from the city manager, I think is a good prospect first. So the alternate motion is on the table. And do I have a
Second.
second? I have a second.
Madam Mayor, I'll withdraw my motion.
Oh, thank you. That's easy. So now we've got one motion on the table, and that, to be clear, is not agendize a work study session, but direct the city manager or responsible charter officer, all of them, ideally, right, to contribute, to investigate the matter and prepare a written response to the council. And just to be clear, about the need, scope, and to Councilwoman Littlefield's point, the purpose of what you would see a task force adding to, a residents' task force adding to what we are already doing. So, without complicating things, which I think I did just then, but can I have a vote on the motion, please? There was a second. Thank you, Councilwoman Littlefield. Thank you very much. And with that, this passes, and please go ahead with that action. And I think we are all set and done. Does anyone have a motion to
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all of you that were here all night, long night.